This meeting is being recorded.
Good evening. This is the Council's third public hearing in which we will hear testimony on amendments to the County Executive's proposed general plan, HOCO by Design. The proceeding this evening is a hybrid meeting, which is held in person and via WebEx teleconference. It is also available to the public via video stream online at the County Council website and broadcast on channels 44 Verizon and 99 Comcast. Sign up to testify on general plan amendments that is the subject of this public hearing was done online and was available in person prior to the start of this session. The cutoff for testimony sign-up was at 7 p.m. this evening. At this time, I'm going to do a roll call of the council members. Vice Chair Young?
Here.
Mr. Youngman?
Here.
Dr. Jones?
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening. And Ms. Walsh?
I am here.
Wonderful. Before we begin this evening's proceedings, we will recite the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
This evening, the council will hear testimony on your proposed general plan amendments. On our next work session on amendments is on September 27th at 6:30 p.m. On October 2nd at 7 p.m., the council will hold their October legislative session in which final consideration will be given to legislation previously introduced and heard. This includes Council Bill 28-2023, which is the general plan. A complete calendar of council meetings regarding the general plan can be found on the council's website. Please check regularly for updates of the various remaining general plan sessions. If there are any students who will be testifying this evening, for those in person, please come to the front row so we can call you up to testify. And for those virtually, please contact Isaiah Anderson by raising your virtual hand on the WebEx or sending him an email to ianderson, with an O, at howardcountymd.gov. We will allow students to testify first so they may get home at a reasonable time. Please note that we are continuing to receive testimony, that while we are receiving testimony in person and via WebEx this evening, as always, we will continue to receive written comments, which will be fully considered by the council prior to taking action. Anyone who signed up to testify at this hearing as an individual or on behalf of an organization will be called to testify. When you are called upon to testify, in testifying in person, we ask that you come up to the podium and turn on the microphone to begin your testimony. If you are testifying virtually, you'll be unmuted by our meeting moderator. In both cases, please state your name and the city or town of your home address. If you signed up to testify and are providing testimony on behalf of a nonprofit organization or a government board, commission, or task force, you must have already provided written documentation of your authorization to testify on behalf of that group to the council administrator. Only one representative may speak on behalf of an organization. Others interested may testify as individuals. Organizational representatives, please identify the organization, board, commission, or task force on behalf of which you are testifying. Nonprofit organizations will have up to 5 minutes to speak. Individuals and other organizations will have up to 3 minutes. Individuals who have indicated that they are testifying through an interpreter may be allowed a total of 5 minutes with interpreter translation. You may not yield your time to another speaker. You will be notified at the 30-second mark to begin wrapping up by the administrator, and then you will be notified when your time to speak is up. You must conclude when your time is up. If you have written testimony, you may also email it to councilmail@howardcountymd.gov. We will now proceed with our agenda. Mr. Wimberly, do you need to read it before we begin?
I do not.
Okay. Are there any students in the audience tonight? Or virtually? All right. First, we have Stu Cohn.
Good evening. My name is Stu Cohn, testifying on behalf of the Howard County Citizens Association, HCCA. The future is now and depends on what you do today for tomorrow, especially if you care about the quality of life for your constituents. The future as proposed in HOCO by Design will be meaningless unless you adopt this very strongly suggested HCCA amendment to ensure the focus is on accountability throughout the document. This amendment should be your number one priority for approval. It reads as follows. All implementation action statements for each chapter of HOCO by Design shall be evaluated and include a written report card by the various lead agencies for action to require a review with the County Council and conduct a public hearing on a periodic basis where questions can be asked. This is to ensure all implementation action statements are indeed meaningful and not just rhetoric, to ensure the proposed goals are being met or completed. The implementation matrix is impressive, but it won't mean anything unless there are checks and balances. As stated at your work session, there are 24 agencies responsible for execution, 78 policies, 323 actions, of which 133 are ongoing, 137 midterm, and 53 long-term. Therefore, it is essential we have the utmost accountability possible. The time frame for the implementation matrix needs to be revised, whereby midterm should be 4 years, long-term 5 to 7. All ongoing activities should be reviewed, preferably on a yearly basis, but at least every 2 years. We need to periodically hear the status of all implementation statements. Without the adoption of this amendment, the 372 pages of this document becomes a so what. We are depending on you to do what is right. Another suggested amendment would be to include an implementation action whereby the Johns Hopkins Howard County Medical Center is required to conduct a public forum on a yearly basis to discuss the current status of patient care at the facility. Currently, the hospital cannot handle the existing patient traffic. Believe me, I know. We hear the rationale that the hospital cannot be included because it is a private institution. This is not true, as the county and state have been contributing to funding the hospital, which I'm very glad. Ideally, as a quality of life issue, the hospital should be a part of Apfo, which we have been advocating for years. A third suggestion is to consider including an implementation action item that states any new development shall have major roads either constructed or the necessary funding approved, whether it be the state and or county for any new development. We are extremely disappointed your amendments have not been posted in time for this hearing, although I do see there's one now by Liz Walsh. So we could possibly comment. This is wrong. There should have been a scheduled public hearing on the DPZ's website titled Welcome to HOCO by Design is wording stating, quote, county officials want to hear from every voice as we create one vision for the county's future, unquote. Apparently this statement is not true, being we don't have a voice when it comes to amendments. We want to hear from you. It looks as though you are placating your constituents. By the way, it's been over 2 months since we asked via our testimony that you respond to questions, but unfortunately there have been silence. The questions were, what is the present cost incurred of HOCO by Design? How does this plan differ, and what are the major benefits compared to the last 3 general plans? The courtesy of a response from you would be appreciated. Anyone wishing to respond now? We hope you will take the necessary action as our future is in your hands to promote the quality of life we are all depending on. HOCO by Design needs to be a document where words are meaningful and accountable. Thank you very much. Do we have any answers?
Well, I will say we do have almost 60 people signed up for tonight, so we do want to make sure that the public forum is held open for the public. But I'm sure we can continue to talk.
Can you please publicize the questions that we're asking, the answers to the questions? I think it's very important.
We will do our best to meet your requests.
I would appreciate it. We all would appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Next, we have Paul Casey. And after Mr. Casey, we'll have Kevin Chin, followed by Connor Gephardt, followed by Stephen Moffett. And we've reserved these first 4 seats up here if people want to come and sort of get on deck. And that way we can make sure that we are helping to respect everyone's time and making sure that we're hearing from folks.
Good evening, council members. My name is Paul Casey, and I live at 4037 Dado Court in Ellicott City. I serve on the board of the Housing Commission and previously served on the Housing Opportunities Master Plan Task Force and on the advisory panel for HOCO by Design. Tonight, however, I am testifying as a concerned citizen in favor of what I consider to be the most critical amendment to the HOCO by Design General Plan, an amendment authorizing an annual housing target of 2,000 units with set-asides for affordable and accessible housing. My family moved to Howard County in 1985 because of the diversity and quality of life, and because 40 years ago, housing was affordable for families with young children. The next general plan must continue that diversity by ensuring affordable housing is available for all who want to live and work in our county. In the past few months, you've heard passionate stories from many of our friends and neighbors, from seniors, young adults entering the workforce, persons with disabilities, families, public employees, and others. They shared their personal struggles with dramatic rent increases and the limited supply of affordable housing, making it difficult for them to enjoy a decent quality of life in our county and sometimes not even able to live here. HOCO by Design proposes many bold planning changes, but there's one change, one recommendation that's not bold. It's a disappointment, and that's an annual housing target of only 1,580 units. 1,580. That's 500 less than the county's current target. This report declares that this is a critical inflection point for our county's housing policy. The county may need up to 31,000 new homes to accommodate job growth by 2040, and there's a pent-up demand already of 20,000 housing units for those who work in the county but live elsewhere. Given that demand, it simply does not compute that HOCO by Design would have a sadly inadequate housing target that fails to address our critical housing shortage. To ensure equitable economic growth, the Master Plan Task Force recommended a target of 2,000 housing units, with set-asides for affordable and accessible housing. The Planning Board, in making its recommendations to the Council, supported that target. The Housing Affordability Coalition also supports the 2,000-unit annual target with set-asides of 25% and 10% for affordable and accessible units. HOCO by Design offers innovative planning tools to develop housing units, working with environmental considerations. They include things like promoting mixed-use development in existing activity centers, facilitating missing middle and accessory dwelling units, repurposing buildings and parking lots, making use of county land for mixed development of public facilities and housing, and many more. With these bold planning tools, why not set a general plan housing target that's also bold and achievable? Let's put those tools to good use. And an added benefit is that when you have more housing, the report study showed that the county's revenue structure provides more revenues than it costs for services. Please approve this amendment for 2,000 housing units annually with set-asides for affordable and accessible units so that people of all incomes and backgrounds can find a place to live and make home in Howard County.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Next, we have Kevin Chin, followed by Connor Gephardt, followed by Stephen Moffett.
Hi, this is on. All right. Hi, my name is Kevin Chin. I'm a resident of Ellicott City. Unaffordable housing is a policy choice. Homelessness is a policy choice. And that policy choice is exclusionary zoning. Exclusionary zoning is when our county government makes it illegal to build anything but single-family homes in residential areas. The majority of our county's residential land is zoned exclusively for single-family homes. What this policy does is economically exclude people from high-opportunity areas. We are blessed and privileged to live in the great state of Maryland and in a high-opportunity place such as Howard County. But for some reason, we do not want to share the bounty. We have put up the signs, love is love, no human is illegal, healthcare is a human right, but in the very same breath we say you can't be a part of our neighborhood because you can't afford $1 million home. We as a county and a country have come a long way to end racially exclusionary housing. Today, anybody of any race can buy in any neighborhood they wish, and rightfully so, there are laws that prevent discrimination. However, we have substituted exclusionary laws by race with exclusionary laws by class with our zoning. If people want to live in a single-family home, that is their right and their choice. I personally live in a single-family home. But what I find morally outrageous is when that millionaire homeowner, in the name of sticking it to the multimillionaire developer, blocks cheaper forms of missing middle housing from being built. Missing middle includes housing such as duplexes, quadplexes, cottage courtyards, or stacked townhomes. These types of housing are intrinsically cheaper than single-family homes because they use less land and are smaller in size. Again, it is illegal to build these in the majority of county land due to exclusionary zoning. It's easy to be against zoning changes in the name of anti-developer or anti-profit, but what everyone seems to forget is the person on the other side of that equation, the new resident buying the condo or townhome. People want to come to Howard County, and that is a good thing. However, if we continue our exclusionary ways and refuse to change, we will soon find ourselves like California, where tens of thousands of people leave the state and our children move away because they cannot find any reasonably priced homes in the area. Change is going to happen one way or another to the county, and there's one of two routes to follow. We're either going to try to crystallize ourselves in amber and cling to the way things used to be, which will make housing more and more expensive, or we can respond to this affordability crisis by building a community where, as Jim Rouse said, a CEO and a janitor can live in the same neighborhood. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Connor Gephardt, followed by Stephen Moffitt, followed by Fran Lopresti, followed by Lisa Markovitz.
Hi, good evening, Connor. You've now been elevated. Feel free to unmute yourself when you're ready and turn on your camera if you wish.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Awesome. Good evening, members of the council. My name is Connor Gephardt. I am a resident of Ellicott City. I am speaking tonight again in favor of HOCO by Design, and as tonight's agenda consists of amendments, I will speak on some things that I believe were missed in the current HOCO by Design proposal. First, I want to highlight what I've heard from countless testimonies across all three of these community comment events. HOCO by Design does not contain enough of a commitment to building more housing. We must commit to bringing down the cost of living in the county, commit to building more housing, commit to policies such as rent control and rent stabilization, and commit to making our community live up to the hype of being the second richest county in the state. The current housing conditions in our county are a result of policy choices, and we have an opportunity here to make choices that will make our county more equitable and a better place to live. Second, I want to talk about transit again. I desperately want to live in a place where it doesn't take me at least half an hour to get to the places that I need and want to go. In HOCO by Design, Columbia is described as the hub of all action in the county. I wish I could appreciate it more, but it is just annoying enough that I usually end up trying to avoid it unless I have a very specific need that I can't access closer to where I live. In the same sense as housing, I do not believe this plan contains enough of a commitment to transit and movement across the county. I think it says some nice things about where investment could occur, but I think we need to be bold and actually say what we want to see in the next 20 years. Without concrete goals to build towards, there is no way to tell in 10 years when we go through all of this again, whether or not we were successful. I have been a proponent of this plan since I first read it, but here we are at the end of the process, and I really hope you take the things that myself and many others have advocated for and include them in the final version. I look forward to seeing the final version and seeing how it changes our community for the better in the coming years. Thank you again to the dedication from the folks in DPZ and everyone else who has worked to make this something that I think we can all be proud of. And finally, thank you to everyone who has spoken and who is speaking tonight for choosing to be part of making our community a better place. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Gephardt, especially for the last part. So I just wanted to make a note that there is a vehicle who has their lights on. We have a Maryland plate. It is a black Mercedes SUV, and the plate number is 3EK8631. So I want to make sure you don't need to jump later. That is a black Mercedes SUV, Maryland plates, 3EK8631. Next, we have Stephen Moffitt, followed by Fran Lopresti, and then Lisa Markovitz.
Do I need to unmute this? It's good? Okay. Just want to say thanks for having me here tonight. This is my first time speaking at something like this, so just thanks for the opportunity. I thought I would just quickly tell the story of coming to live here. In May 1st of 2020, that's when me and my wife bought our house. During that time, realtors couldn't even show houses. It was actually illegal for them to show at the time, so we got to see it during a home inspection. We were able to get this house and to buy it so affordably because the person who was buying it got COVID and they lost their job. The couple that was selling it got divorced, and the house needed a lot of work. So for that reason, we were able to buy a house that fit within our budget and that we really liked. Two things we were really excited about with the house was the fact that it had a garage so we could pursue our woodworking hobby. And attached to the garage was an apartment. And we were really excited about that because we thought that we could have a friend live there. We had 6 or 7 friends who were excited to maybe rent it from us. But we noticed that the apartment had a lot of damage. And so as we started to move into the house, we started to talk to some of the neighbors. And one of the neighbors told us that they thought there might be some issues with the apartment. Maybe it was illegal or something like that. And so that's when I kind of got into learning about zoning and learning about the process of city planning and things like that. And I found out that it's actually illegal to have an apartment there. And the reason why there was so much damage was because they had been forced to rip most of it out. And so that kind of brings me to the present day. I came to talk to one of the guys that works here about zoning, some things related to my house. And he told me that if I was kind of passionate about this idea of what I learned were called ADUs, that tonight would be kind of a good time to come and talk. I think that ADUs would be a great idea for Howard County, just from the perspective of being affordable. It would be something that would really help people like myself who are new property owners be able to make a little extra income to help with repairs. It would be something that would be great for a lot of people that are young professionals that are able to save up money while they're trying to buy a house in the future. So that's all I had. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Mr. Moffitt, and don't let it be your last time. Welcome back. Next, we have Fran Lopresti, followed by Lisa Markovitz, followed by Jessamine Duvall.
Sorry about that. Good evening, council members. I am Fran Lopresti, and I have lived in the village of Owen Brown for 43 years, and 5 years before that in Ellicott City. I am chair of the Age-Friendly Howard County Housing Work Group, and will be speaking for the group. One of the dimensions of having an age-friendly community is housing, and both the type and location of housing suitable for an aging population are paramount. First, seniors are the fastest growing segment of our county population, and there is not enough housing suitable for older adults. We concur that there should be an amendment and that the yearly housing allocation should be increased to $2,000 with 25% set aside for affordable housing and housing for both older adults and persons with disability. We should tighten the zoning regulations that permit developers to opt out of building affordable homes. It is not helping the housing crisis to continue to build at the high end at the expense of the low and moderate income working families and older adults who want to live in the county. I have testified that older adults want and need choices of the types of housing. Stacked duplexes and triplexes can provide the larger retirement home on one floor, the first floor. Single-story cottage squares are neighborhood-oriented and a viable solution. So are multi-unit buildings. The point is to provide choices. The location of new or redeveloped housing is also key. Older adults tend to drive less and would prefer to be near amenities such as grocery stores and community centers. Having some of the amenities walkable would be ideal. We must expand affordable housing to all of Columbia. Currently is only permitted in downtown Columbia. Howard County needs to adopt an intentional housing posture regarding older adults. I would like to take the rest of my time tonight to talk about minimal building standards for all new or redeveloped housing as discussed in the Age-Friendly Action Plan. I think this might be called housing that is sustainable for a lifetime, from stroller to wheelchair. It would benefit everyone, regardless of age, physical ability, or stature, without being obtrusive. There are universal design features that are in line with the age-friendly model that I'll talk about. The first is a no-step entrance. Could be the front door, the garage, the side door. No one needs to use stairs to get into the home's main rooms. The path to that entrance must be wheelchair accessible with a proper ground grade. Now, terrain may make this difficult and there will have to be exceptions, but mobility is the most reported difficulty among older adults and persons with disabilities. This type of entrance would be required wherever possible. Second, wide doors on the first floor. Doorways should be 32 to 36 inches wide. I think you've heard this before. This permits wheelchairs, mobility devices, and citizens with service animals to enter the home safely. Strollers, too. Third, wide hallways. They should be 36 to 42 inches wide to let wheelchairs pass through. Besides, it looks a lot better and it's easier to move furniture, especially today's refrigerators, into the house. Fourth, one-story main living is important. A place to eat, use the bathroom, and sleep are all located on one level, which is barrier-free. This feature is desirable to older adults and to families with visiting parents. Fifth, there should be strength blocking between the studs in both the first floor, low threshold or no-step shower, and near the toilet. It is invisible to the owner, but the bathroom is the first place where older adults start to have mobility issues. The floor should have non-slip surfaces to prevent falls. These costs are minimal. Sixth, extra floor space. Both the kitchen and bathroom must have room so a wheelchair can reasonably turn around. And I have never heard of an owner who did not welcome a bit more space in the kitchen or bathroom. If all new housing, including multifamily housing, were built to these standards, older adults would have many more choices in housing, families would have a welcome home for their parents, parents could more easily navigate with strollers, and any owner would be ready for unforeseeable events. A temporary or permanent disability can happen at any age. It happened in my family. These requirements are not budget busters when included in the initial build, but can be very costly when trying to retrofit them later. A universally designed home is a sustainable home across generations and for many types of families. I'd like to state that other jurisdictions like Prince George's County are starting to think about barrier-free or universal design in housing that can attract a wide variety of people. I would like to see Howard County be one of those jurisdictions. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Lisa Markovitz, followed by Jessamine Duvall, followed by Peter Engel.
Hi, good evening, Lisa. You've now been elevated. Feel free to unmute yourself and turn on your camera if you wish.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Hello?
Yes, we can, Ms.
Thank you so
Markovitz.
much. Good evening. Lisa Markovitz for the People's Voice, Ellicott City. Thank you for your hard work on this exhaustive exercise to update the general plan. We have already given a lot of testimony with specific requests for amendments on many topics. Tonight, we will summarize some general issues and note sites where amendments are suggested. I will not read, but they are provided in the written testimony. Throughout the plan, there are many goals of changed land use. There are many benefits noted to speed and ease development, mostly regarding obtaining more affordable housing without requiring it. This implies a belief that density equals affordable, which is not the case, has not been here for a long time. Increasing same supply will not appreciably lower pricing for all, and especially will not make a home affordable when it was not previously to a set income range, nor help the homeless. Many things affect housing prices, not the least of which is an almost inelastic high demand. We will not get more affordable, more assistance for homeless, nor more missing middle housing without requiring it. Implementation goals need to be edited to insist on offsets for easing development. Otherwise, it's a missed opportunity. Some new uses tout benefits without noting any downsides and tend to assume one size fits all for things that do not necessarily fit everywhere due to safety, traffic, or stormwater issues. Contradictory statements need shoring up so future projects do not quote good goals being met, yet have the ability to ignore noted concerns. For example, adding more mixed uses to shopping centers notes parking needs could be met by street parking, then says care should be taken to minimize through traffic to adjacent neighborhoods. A good way to place the ability for future decisions to rationally apply the plan goals to projects and fix problems like this example is to add to every single chapter of the statement that, quote, all proposed land use changes and residential density increases must be made in a regional conditional process to allow for concerns to be addressed such as infrastructure needs, safety, and environmental issues, unquote. Many people seem to be okay with infrastructure being overwhelmed to get more housing built. Others feel quite the opposite. Some new land use ideas like multiplexes and ADUs could be a good supply of smaller and thus less expensive housing. Implementation of these needs to be done conditionally so as to locate in areas without huge problems with ingress, egress, and stormwater issues. Another contradiction example is in Technical Appendix B character area. Quote, density bonuses and reduced parking requirements could incentivize development to create more affordable housing units than required, especially units for persons with disabilities, unquote. Really, where is this unicorn land use of philanthropy we have been missing? Giving more density and less parking requirements is going to result in more affordable housing, especially for those with disabilities, automatically, without requiring it. We cannot just automatically overwhelm an area and its residents in this made-up world of no traffic and charitable development. Please change these types of statements to a more rational approach, such as, quote, density increases and parking requirement reductions should be given only where public transit and walkability permit. Any changes to regulations made to incentivize development should contain requirements for specified increased provision of affordable housing than required, especially for people with disabilities, unquote. There, that would make much more sense to achieve this goal. There are many who can see through to the basic issues here, calling for more accountability and agree with the housing advocates about what is needed, but just not how to get there. If we were to have signs here tonight, they would say, density does not equal affordable, please require it, or affordable housing, require it to get it. Incentivizing development alone is not going to get the affordable housing we need. It won't fix the problem these same policies have caused in the first place. Development easing, whether it be faster tracks, lower fees, higher density, are all extremely valuable benefits for projects. Providing more affordable housing, missing middle housing, or homeless support funding should be noted as required to receive these benefits that are so rampantly suggested in this implementation goals of the plan. Assuming the utopia results without requiring it is a huge mistake. Please fix that. Lastly, it seems likely many amendments will come to CB 28. I hope those that are clearly substantive are deemed so in order for proper public response to be allowed. Thank you.
All right, next we have Jessamine Duvall.
I brought paper copies over there. Good evening. My name is Jessamine Duvall, and I am here representing the Columbia Housing Center, a Howard County nonprofit organization with a mission to champion and sustain thriving, racially integrated communities in and around Columbia. I'm here to ask you to adopt all amendments proposed by the Howard County Housing Affordability Coalition because they make sense. However, the most urgent need is to ensure that at least 2,000 new homes are built each year, of which 25% or 500 homes should be affordable for households earning less than 60% of Howard County's median income. Further, 10% of the affordable homes should meet ADA requirements. Here's why. In June of 2022, Columbia Housing Center launched an apartment referral service that helps housing seekers find homes in and around Columbia. Since that time, we've received 649 applications from people seeking housing in Howard County. Of those 649 households, we have only been able to provide housing referrals to 87 households. That's only 13% of the people who need housing. Why is that number so low? Because we have an affordable housing crisis in Howard County. Here's some of the data on the folks that we see who are desperately seeking affordable housing in Howard County. Of the 649 households, 67% have a female head of household. 80% of them are considered low income, less than 60% of the median income, and 72% of the people in these households identify as Black or African American. The vast majority of the people who contact CHC seeking housing are working Black single mothers, and they are being disproportionately underserved in Howard County. We've talked to moms who have vouchers but can't find an apartment because landlords won't accept their credit score. We've talked to moms who have been laid off and have had to accept a lower paying job, so they're struggling to make ends meet. We've talked to moms who are employees of local nonprofits, including CAC, the United Way, and the Howard County Housing Commission, who are at risk of eviction due to outrageous rent increases. For example, we recently tried to find housing for Maya, a working single mom with a voucher who's trying to move to Howard County so her 2 children can benefit from our school system. She has a perfect rental history. We provided several referrals, but she was denied by all of them because her credit score was less than 650. We tried to help Gloria, another single mom with a disabled child. She lost her home because the landlord sold the property and she couldn't find a place before her lease was up. She has a voucher that expires at the end of this month, and she has been denied by multiple landlords because they selected another applicant. She's now living in a motel and is about to run out of money. She told us, "I am devastated, very worried, and afraid of being out in the streets." And these are the folks we can provide referrals for. There are 562 more households that we have been unable to serve at all due to the lack of affordable units. There are so many more devastating stories I could share with you if we had more time. As a community, we need to step back and take a hard look at ourselves in the mirror. Is this what James Rouse imagined when he created Columbia to be a fully integrated city where everyone has access to opportunities? In 1967, when he was describing plans for Columbia, James Rouse said, "Housing will be provided at the full range of rents and prices to accommodate the company janitor and the company executive." Now in 2023, we are a community where only those who make more than $125,000 a year can find a place to live. The janitor doesn't live next to the CEO because she can't afford it. A final note. You've heard some people talk about wanting to preserve the character of existing neighborhoods as a reason not to build more housing. At the Columbia Housing Center, we believe that building more housing does preserve our character as a community. Character is defined as the distinctive nature of something, or the quality of being individual in an interesting or unusual way. That's Columbia. We're different. Columbia was created to be inclusive and open to all races, ethnicities, religions, and income brackets. To keep our unique character, we must allow more housing in our community. If we don't, we are abandoning the values of integration, inclusion, acceptance, and equal opportunity on which our city was built. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Peter Engel, followed by Erica Smith, Angie Boyder, and Kathy Hudson.
Good evening. I'm Peter Engel, the Executive Director of the Howard County Housing Commission. Because of the importance of the issues before you tonight, I'm testifying at the explicit request of the Commission's board members. The county's general plan is produced only once every 10 years. It's clearly important that we get it right. To that end, I thank you for your time, energy, focus, and thoughtfulness as you prepare to finalize and approve a plan, and I thank the Department of Planning and Zoning, which put so much effort into creating this plan. The Housing Opportunities Master Plan and HOCO by Design do a great job in laying out what we need. There's a shortage of at least 20,000 homes in the county today, and a need for at least 31,000 new homes by 2040 to meet our increasing employment. There's a high demand for more affordable senior housing, as a quarter of senior renters are paying more than 50% of their income for housing. There's a high need for starter homes, as most new for sale homes are affordable people only making more than 120% of the area median income, and in 2020, the average size of a new for sale detached home was over 4,000 square feet, and a new for sale townhome was almost 2,500 square feet. There's a desperate need for more homes for lower wage workers. The county lacks homes for at least 7,000 households living here today who are earning less than 60% of area median. For a recent commission property, we had over 250 applications for 70 units, and when we opened our waiting list for the Housing Choice Voucher Program for the first time in 11 years, in the month of August, we received almost 16,000 applications. Where the plan needs some assistance is in how we intend to meet this need. According to the plan, the county should have at least 51,000 more homes than it does today by 2040. Yet that same plan provides for only a maximum of about 24,000 new homes. This means that we are planning to increase our deficit of housing. So step one to improve the plan, increase the number of housing allocations to a minimum of 2,000 per year. While this is still inadequate to meet the need, it will at least not increase our deficit. To be truly bold and aspirational, we should allocate the 3,400 homes per year that the plan says we actually need. Step two, require 25% of these housing allocations to be affordable and 10% of these affordable allocations to be accessible. By creating and enforcing these requirements, we would not only address the needs of our constituents who are here in the county today, but we would bring the creative ideas of our private sector to bear on the problem. Step three, using the future land use map, expand the zones where starter homes and apartments can be built. HOCO by Design discusses options to do this and identifies a small number of activity zones where it might occur, but does not recommend that starter homes and apartments be allowed by right in these areas. Without by right development, government processes are often used to stall and defeat needed new housing. HOCO by Design also discusses multifamily overlay districts that might be used to site new smaller homes, but then only suggests the appointment of a group to study the question. Appoint that group and require identified zones that will produce the needed homes before zoning is enacted. Step 4, require a plan for Gateway within a year. HOCO by Design acknowledges that Gateway should be an opportunity, but doesn't make any recommendations. Step 5, HOCO by Design is aware that Apfo has the ability to enable or hinder efforts to meet the housing needs of Howard County residents, but doesn't discuss the process. Require an Apfo recommendation by June of 2024. Step 6, change the map to eliminate rural living zones outside the planned service area southeast of Route 108 to the Montgomery County border. Zoning is the last government program to create and enforce segregation. Large lot single-family zoning, the type that predominates outside the planned service area, is exclusionary. It allows only for large, expensive houses. Because wealth and income are still tightly associated with race, it means that the black population of Howard County is disproportionately excluded from these areas. While we understand that the character of a neighborhood is important, when that character was created to exclude people, it needs to change. HOCO by Design is a masterpiece of a master plan. It provides large quantities of carefully curated data. It lays out many, many options for future development. Please take the next steps by adopting the plan with the recommendations that we have outlined for you tonight. Thank you again very much for all your time and effort on HOCO by Design and for getting it right.
Thank you. Next, we have Erica Smith, followed by Angie Boyder, followed by Kathy Hudson, followed by Kuana Brady. Please let me know when you come. Is Erica Smith here? Sure. Erica Smith, are you on the call right now? If you are calling in this evening and you are Erica Smith, we would love to hear from you if you can speak into your phone. All right. Angie Boyder.
I'm not Erica Smith, but but I came through. I was planning to come in person, but I couldn't make it, so I'm through the phone. I don't know.
Okay, that's all right.
To speak or...
It's all right. When I will keep going through the list, and when you hear yourself, we'll elevate again. There'll be a pause. We'll try to figure it out. Then we'll elevate everybody again, and then we'll be able to hear you. So right now, thank you so much. We're going to hear from Angie Boyder, followed by Kathy Hudson, followed by Kiana Brady.
Now it's better, green. Okay. I'm Angie Boyder, a happy resident of Dunlogan in Ellicott City since 1967. And you have heard from me in the past, since we don't yet know what amendments you've proposed, I must reiterate my concerns. ADUs could cause physical damage to nearby properties in many neighborhoods. Any decrease in green space is downright harmful in Dunlogan with our poor drainage and inadequate stormwater management. ADUs will significantly increase impermeable surfaces and runoff problems and flooding for nearby homes. A number of my neighbors have experienced stormwater damage to their homes in excess of $50,000, and often this happens after the county has allowed a single oversized lot to be subdivided or a neighbor has built a significant addition to their home. I would be happy to show you some examples. New construction is not required to take steps to prevent stormwater issues it creates on other properties. This is something you should put into effect for all new construction and not just ADUs. Dunlogan is an established community like many in our county and has a character which good land use protects. ADUs could lead to significant changes in the character of a neighborhood. Older neighborhoods like ours don't have dedicated open space. Our neighborhoods are, our backyards are our open space. So ADUs could significantly increase the open space we all enjoy and the wild critters, even when it's in a neighbor's yard. Contrary to many claims, it is not age-friendly to older adults to promote ADUs. They say older adults could house caregivers or younger families could house parents, but we can do both now within existing homes. Our older adults want to age in place, not just in our homes, but in our communities that we're used to living in. We don't want them to change to higher densities and especially less green space. There's also mention that older people could rent out their ADU for extra income. The last thing an aging person needs are the problems of being a landlord. What happens if I sell a house with an ADU? Most people will not want a second house on their property, so the property is most likely to appeal to investors who will then rent out both units with a conditional use. Non-resident landlords do not maintain the property the way a resident owner would. On the other hand, the seller may just ask to have the property divided and sell it to two buyers, and I would give you odds the county would let them. Since, the original property would still be zoned for single family, I wonder if they could then add a new ADU. I truly understand the need for more affordable housing. I do, but the cost per square foot to build a detached home in Howard County means that a detached ADU will still be very expensive and is not a good answer to the affordable housing problem. The board of my community association, St. John's, has not had a specific vote on ADUs with the board, but we did a survey in 2021, had 134 responses, of which 106 were opposed, 23 in favor, and 5 uncertain. Please consider the needs and desires of existing residents and do not allow accessory dwelling units as a matter of right anywhere in the county.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next, we have Kathy Hudson.
Good evening. A new topic. Kathy Hudson from Elk Ridge. When the general plan began and the Planning Advisory Committee was meeting, one of my first questions to the consultant and the planners was this. Although I love the concept of mixed use that we see in the CAC developments, those developments have been a complete failure as they became completely residential developments, crammed into an area and that offered nothing to the greater community. And contrary to what the developers had promised, the higher density that was given to them just brought us luxury units, not the range of affordable housing that was envisioned. Oops, I did bring in affordable housing. So my question to them was, what are we going to do differently this time around that will make mixed use a success? Unfortunately, I never received an answer, except that now we're going to be calling them activity centers. Oh, and let's try mixing industrial with housing, which I think would be an even greater disaster, especially in the Elk Ridge South District. Tonight, though, I would like to talk about the need for more industrial, especially M1 properties, and to ensure that this general plan restores some of the lost M1 zone land that was lost in the last general plan. The general plan talks about all the non-conforming use businesses along the Route 1 corridor. They're non-conforming because they were rezoned last time, and the businesses had no idea they were rezoned. Business owners need predictability, not only for their own property, but also for the properties that abut them. Shall I say mulch, Councilman Youngman? In the last general plan, many business owners, unbeknownst to them, had their M1 zoning changed to other letters that had been a failure. CE, CELLI, there was a whole range of them. I don't know that anything's been developed under those. One business owner that I'm aware of had to pay over $20,000 to go through the long process of obtaining a non-conforming use. That is not being business-friendly as a county. The general plan touts how many jobs the plan will add, but doesn't mention how many businesses it will kill or the jobs that will be lost in its continuing attempts to convert business uses to residential. Also, we need more commercial uses to keep our tax base healthy. I can't believe the general plan is actually proffering that residential development pays for itself. I don't believe those numbers or their assumptions and would be happy to debate them further. Likewise, the Spending Affordability Advisory Committee emphasized the importance of commercial-based development to rebalance expenditure needs and fiscal resources. Finally, I am seeing increasing pressure in residential areas of small businesses. The residentials are getting the M1 overload. The businesses are moving in. Time's going up. Finally, Councilmember Walsh's amendment has been posted. Will add something that was left out of the general plan, but that's a huge need in Elkridge. She changes the industrial mixed-use area in that area that fronts Route 1 into a campus zoning. This will give Elkridge a chance at being able to get the needed acreage to actually get the needed amenities that have been promised for so long, such as a high school, a community center, or public gathering spaces. With the county library and senior center across the street, that would give Elkridge a positive gathering area that many could actually walk to and the county could be proud of. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Hudson. And I will follow up, not for a debate, but just because I love talking with you about housing, and I will share those methodologies with you. Next, we have Kiana Brady, followed by Jorge Benavides, followed by Richard Bolton, followed by Kevin Bruning. Great. Kiana, we believe that you are calling in, and so if you are, we're going to elevate everyone on the phone, and we should be able to hear you now. Ms. Brady, can you hear us? All right, well, I hope third time will be the charm. Jorge Benavides. Jorge Benavides. All right, Richard Bolton.
So is this on? Okay. Good evening. I'm Dick Bolton. I'm a resident of Dorsey Search in Columbia. All things considered, the HOCO by Design report does a pretty good job of reviewing the state of affairs in the county and suggesting plans for moving forward. I was disappointed, however, that the role of Columbia as a distinct community has been erased. Columbia is probably the country's most successful planned community and is regularly cited as one of the best places to live in America. It has a prominent role as a case study in every graduate program on community planning, and it's a driving force in the county economy. No serious mention shows up until page 161, halfway through the document. Neither Columbia, with its lakes, facilities, amenities, nor its visionary founder, James Rouse, are seen as important factors. And the covenants and Newtown zoning that made Columbia possible are criticized as standing in the way of some sort of quick and dirty progress. The villages, the core of Rouse's vision, are ignored, and our village centers are demoted to common activity centers. Our parkways are seen as opportunities for commercialization, and the Newtown objective of making retail less obtrusive is denigrated. The fact that downtown and Gateway are part of Columbia, intrinsic parts of Columbia, seems to be overlooked. Now, also overlooked, Route 40, a glittering eyesore and supreme example of suburban sprawl, gets no real attention. This area desperately needs remedial action and should be seen as an example of everything we want to avoid in the future. Unmentioned are corporate campaign contributions that result in sound planning getting overruled. Politicians who accept such funding need to recuse themselves on community development votes. Stormwater needs to be retained at the source and not allowed to flood downstream properties nor surge into wetlands where it scours stream beds and leads to the need for lake dredging. Fees in lieu need to be abolished. Developers must obey stated development requirements, not foist them off into somebody else's neighborhood. Apfo should have no time limits. Okay.
There's irony in that. I think even if you tried to time it, you wouldn't have been able to.
When I did it at home, it came in well under 3 minutes. But anyway, thank you very much.
Well, thank you. Next, we have Kevin Bruning, followed by Tracy Broccolino, followed by Ron Briggs. Ron Briggs.
Good evening, council members. I'd like to thank you for allowing the community the opportunity to provide comments this evening. My name is Kevin Bruning. I'm the chairperson of the River Hill Community Association, a Columbia Village. I hold this role on the River Hill Community Association board in an individual capacity only, not as a representative of my employer or any member of the UBS group. I'd like to start with a quote from James Rouse. He said that Columbia is designed to be an alternative to the mindlessness, the irrationality, the unnecessity of sprawl and clutter as a way of accommodating the growth of the American city. We should all be concerned about sprawl and clutter, as Jim Rouse puts it, and we would like an alternative to some of the irrational parts of this plan. Placing infill and opening up gateway to residential will only lead to more sprawl and clutter. Our board and our community are aware of the focus on village centers. There are 24 specific initiatives in the plan that affect zoning. These policies, if implemented, would lead to significant changes to the character of Columbia and River Hill and Howard County. Particularly, we are concerned about DN3, and the creation of a new mixed-density, mixed-use zoning district and its implementation. A new zoning district does not need to be created. Many of these locations where the new zoning district targets are Newtown zoning. All are part of EH3, EP4, EP8, promote significant increases in density. For instance, EH3, in the implementation part of the policy, states that explore whether cluster development may also be appropriate in other residential zoning districts during the zoning regulation update process, unquote. The policy statement, however, reads, ensure the division, quote, ensure the subdivision and land development regulations and zoning regulations provide adequate protection for sensitive environmental resources within the new development and redevelopment, as if the only way to protect sensitive environmental resources is to increase density. There are other ways. For one, reduce the number of units to be built. Reduce the target allocations in the plan to a reasonable number, to say 18 to 20,000. That would be less than the 10-year. That would be less than the previous 10 years. So to address the fact that there's only 2% developable land that is environmental, and that environmental is a priority. Newtown was originally a way to transfer some of the costs the county would pay and decision-making to a decentralized council. It is in a partnership in a lot of ways. Affecting Newtown may have significant unintended consequences. Your job, a tough one, is to serve the people that are here today and create a welcoming and desirable place for new residents without sacrificing quality of life in the process. Howard County should be more than just a place to live. You achieve this by taking a balanced approach to density and development, environmental protections, adequate facilities, and general public goods. Additionally, you should maintain the town center as the premier shopping and entertainment destination in the county. The plan that you will vote on has 109 policy statements. We ask that you amend or remove portions that will have a detrimental impact to River Hill and many of the Columbia Village centers. But there's still a lot missing. Your plan does not include a chapter on healthcare. Your plan loosely mentions decentralization and expansion of Howard Community College, nor does the plan do a good job in providing a vision for business development and innovation. On to one of the reasons why we have issues here in the county. To quote Dan Luby, the HCPSS Director of Capital Planning and Construction, there's been a 52% increase in the cost per square foot from 2018 to 2024 for school construction and renovation, and that our local funds will cover more of the individual project costs. Each capital dollar will be stretched and cover less. It could result in a change of the level of service and the capital needs being deferred. Through 2032, 9 years, there are scheduled school projects adding capacity of 1,963 students. However, over the same period, school population is expected to increase by 6,723 students. The system does not have the money. Thank you for the time this evening and listening to my comments.
Thank you so much, and we appreciate the written as well. Next, we have Tracy Broccolino, followed by Ron Briggs, followed by Laura Brooks.
Good evening, council members. Thank you so much for another opportunity to testify. Oh, am I going now? Good, start over. All right, here we go. It's because I'm the schlep rock. All right, here we go. My name is Tracy Broccolino. I am the president of the Community Action Council of Howard County, and I welcome the opportunity to testify again in support of the recommendations of the Housing Affordability Coalition about Howard County by Design. As a nonprofit in partnership with our other nonprofit friends in our county, CAC has worked to diminish poverty and enable self-sufficiency for all Howard County individuals, families, and children in need for nearly 60 years. Our hot-off-the-press triennial community needs assessment includes a large swath of community data and was informed by over 400 of our clients, and it indicates that housing and affordability as the #1 need in our county. The top 10 zip codes of CAC's clients show that in 6 of those zip codes, rent increased month over month and year over year. In Laurel's zip code of 20794, rent increased an average of $823 year over year. Rents in these areas range from an average low of $1,925 a month to a high of $2,863 a month. Missing just 1 month makes it impossible to catch up. And when we consider rent debt, Howard County has the highest rent debt compared to contiguous counties. Our work at CAC, day in and day out, affirms this housing crisis impacts persons from all walks of life, including our seniors, children, those with exceptionalities, and our essential workers. We support the following recommendations from the Housing Affordability Coalition. Expand our housing supply by building 2,000 new homes per year, of which 500 should be affordable to households earning less than 60% of AMI, and 10% of these homes need to meet the ADA requirements. We need to modify our land use map to allow other types of housing. We need to incentivize developers to increase special needs housing to support our aging seniors on fixed incomes, as well as individuals with exceptionalities. We need to preserve affordable housing and redevelop Gateway at a faster pace to address this housing crisis. Supporting housing also means supporting schools. The number of students in Howard County Public Schools qualifying for free and reduced meals rose from 23% in 2019 to 30% last year. We are feeling this growing need regularly at the food bank. Since March, we've seen a 35% increase in families shopping at the food bank, and the families with children ages 0 to 17 is our largest group of increased need for food. We can have affordable housing and maintain our great schools. I've shared before that in FY22, CAC kept over 800 households from eviction. In FY 2023, that number dropped to 500 families, and this year we anticipate only being able to help a fraction of that number. We need to stop this issue upstream, and I know that there's a limited amount of land, but we have decisions to make. You can make the choice tonight to support the preventative model by increasing the supply of affordable housing and the recommendations of the Housing Affordability Coalition. The Council's support of this plan directly mitigates systemic and socioeconomic challenges. CAC and our friends are grateful for your service to our community. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ms. Broccolino. We are equally grateful for your service. Next, we have Ron Briggs, followed by Laura Brooks, followed by Jackie Ing.
Hi, good evening. We have a few call-in users where there are not names listed. If you are Ron Briggs and you are ready to give your testimony, you should be able to unmute yourself and provide that testimony.
Mr. Briggs, if you are on and able to hear us, you should be able to unmute yourself so we can hear your testimony. All right, well, maybe fourth time will be the charm. Can't strike out all night, right? Next, we have Laura Brooks, followed by Jackie Ing, followed by Bill Salganic, then Barry Mehta.
Hi, good evening, Laura. You've now been elevated. Feel free to unmute yourself and turn on your camera if you wish.
Hi, this is Laura Brooks.
Hello, we can hear you. You may begin your testimony. Thank you so much.
Okay, sorry for the delay. We're sitting in a parking lot and trying to get through it. Okay, so as I said, this is Laura Brooks, and I just want to thank you for the opportunity to speak and express some of my questions and thoughts about the HOCO by Design proposal. My husband and I moved to Columbia 27 years ago with our two very young children, and when we bought our house, we understood the covenants were in place to protect the quality of the community. It took a while for me to appreciate the covenants. They could be sort of a pain in the butt sometimes, but I finally realized they were bedrock principles on which Columbia was developed. Turn it off. Sorry. And now, with very little respect for their importance, this plan seems to trample on the covenants. Rouse did all he could to write the covenants into stone, but I don't know what else he could have done to protect the community from the changes that are being proposed here. The plan seems to me that it will decrease open space. In fact, that's stated, obviously increase housing density, add to traffic congestion, as well as the struggles of an overwhelmed hospital and even more crowded schools. Recently, I told my husband, we've already seen the best of Columbia. We've been very thankful for our experience here, and we're sorry to see the community degraded. James Rouse founded Columbia based on very clear principles. I agree with them all. Also, he was focused on quality and only quantity when it came to protecting the quality of the community. In contrast, this proposal is focused on quantity, mainly numbers of units, with no reference to guiding principles. We do need more affordable housing, but that is not a guiding principle. Yes, I know there's mention of diversity and all, but I ask, what is the end point? Who will say enough is enough? When will the county executive and the developers stop? Months ago, I asked a person in the zoning department what the research says about how different levels of density impact the quality of a community. I never heard back. There must be research on this, but there's no reference to it in the proposal. So how is this plan any different from other failed affordable housing plans in the county? It's the old supply and demand process. As you know, demand
30
drives up
seconds.
prices, and for obvious reasons, people want to move here. My worry is that the community and the reputation will be so degraded. Only then will demand decline. People will go elsewhere. Columbia will no longer be the unique and special place that we've enjoyed. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yeah, Ron Briggs is ready to talk now. Can he go now?
Oh, are you with Ron Briggs?
Yeah, I'm married to him.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh, yes, yes. We would love to hear from Mr. Briggs.
Hi there, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, well, I don't know why my phone was connected to the car. Anyway, it wouldn't work, so I apologize. My name's Ron Briggs, and I've lived in Columbia for over 25 years. And I'm addressing the council tonight with confusion and more questions than answers. HOCO by Design seems to be taking direct aim at the principles that have served Columbia well over the years. New town zoning and our covenants are front and center. Completely rewriting these valuable Columbia rights written to protect our town, seems contrary to what our town stands for. Columbia is repeatedly recognized nationally as a desirable place to live. Why? Because of the numerous amenities that Columbia offers. Bike paths, tot lots, pools, gyms, golf courses, and of course, our schools. Why would you entertain a motion to overcrowd our town? It could be said that we are busting at the seams already. Take schools. We have over 200 portable classrooms already due to overcapacities. Some of our pools and gyms are already overcrowded. Shall we talk about traffic congestion, which has only increased over the years? If we want to talk about overcrowding, let us go to Howard County General. Near 100% bed use, and have you been informed about the emergency wait times and patients in the halls? Have you tried to get a good tea time at Hobbits Glen Golf Course lately? Overcrowded. HOCO by Design says that the additional units will not stress our school systems, since most new units will not add students like before. Really? Columbia is known for some of the best public schools in the state, so why wouldn't parents continue to try and move to Columbia? Funding for our current education system is already underfunded by millions of dollars. HOCO by Design touts the proposed redevelopment as transformative opportunity for the future. Whose future? Developers, politicians, pro-business interests, all who benefit from being in the driver's seat of our city. Columbia has served its residents well for many years. If we cannot grow in our own spaces, then why try to shove a square peg into a round hole? If we need more development, there must be other ways. Maybe we look at other parts of the county to develop there. I ask you to not make nonsensical changes just for change's sake to our beloved town. Thank you.
Thank you both. Next, we have Jackie Ng, followed by Bill Salganic, followed by Barry Mehta, followed by Eric Greenberg.
Good evening, council members. I'm Jackie Ng, and this evening I'm representing the Housing Affordability Coalition. Over the past 3 years of participation in the HOCO by Design process, the coalition's message to the County Executive, Department of Planning and Zoning, the Planning Board, Howard County citizens, and to you council members has been that the next iteration of the general plan is a once-in-a-decade opportunity to correct the county's current and projected significant imbalance of housing and jobs, to change the county's current housing and land use policies that have concentrated low-income families, most often Black and brown families, in pockets of poverty, to ensure that in the future our public servants, our workforce members earning low wages, seniors living on fixed incomes, people with disabilities, and young people launching their careers and/or their families have access to housing that they can afford, and to ensure that Howard County does not stagnate economically or socially and continues to be one of the best places in our state and the country for everyone to live. Supporting these framing principles, the coalition's comments and specific recommendations for changes in the prior and current council drafts can be summarized as follows, and as you've heard before and again tonight. Set 2,000 as the annual housing allocation, of which 25%, 500 units, will be affordable to households with incomes that are 60% or less in Howard County area median income. And of that 25%, require 10%, 50 units, to be ADA compliant. Modify the proposed land use map to facilitate housing equity and deconcentration of low-income neighborhoods. Allow by right more multifamily and missing middle housing, including accessory dwelling units, across the county. Require identification of incentives for development of housing for people who have low and very low incomes, including our seniors and people with disabilities. Establish a preservation and revitalization goal of zero net loss of existing housing units for households earning below 60% of AMI. Facilitate collaborative and innovative approaches to developing new school facilities and identifying new revenue sources to support housing and schools. And accelerate development of the Gateway Master Plan. These coalition principles and recommendations have been broadly endorsed by a significant number of community voices from across the socio-economic spectrum and across the county. In March, 160 people signed a petition to the Planning Board in support of coalition testimony. In June, 422 signed a letter to the council, and many of those signers submitted comments. Dozens and dozens of people who are struggling to maintain or find affordable housing, advocates who work on their behalf, continue to fill these council room seats. Many have sent emails, and 42 advocates stepped up to testify at the June and July hearings, many bravely sharing their personal stories. We know you've heard loud and clear what's become our battle cry, 2025-10. The 2,000 allocations are consistent with the current 1980 Plan Howard General Plan approved allocations. Reducing that number in any amount just because it's in line with the past few years of building permits issued and projects in the pipeline makes no sense. The draft annual allocation approach would resign the county to the status quo that would not only intensify the current housing crisis, but would fail to ensure the county's future financial viability. The HOCO by Design report is very clear that significant numbers of additional homes for rental and home ownership, both market and affordable, are essential to expanding Howard County's commercial tax base and increasing property and income tax revenues. What's needed, rather than accepting the status quo, is an aspirational goal that recognizes the staggeringly insufficient current and projected supply of housing accessible to residents across the full spectrum of housing. And a final request. It's reasonable to expect that the elected officials who developed and adopt a general plan are the ones who should be responsible for the processes that will enable implementation of that plan. In line with that expectation, we have requested County Executive Ball to appoint the Apfo Act Commission by November 1 and set a June 2024 deadline to deliver its recommendations. In conjunction, we respectfully ask that the Council expeditiously undertake the comprehensive zoning process. We thank you for this opportunity to provide these comments. We are so very appreciative of your commitment through this whole process, from the information hearings through the work sessions to the hearings, and we could not thank you enough. We look forward to seeing the Council's proposed amendments and adoption of an updated general plan on October 2nd. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next, we have Bill Salganic, followed by Barry Mehta, followed by Eric Greenberg, followed by Ray Serrano.
Push here to mute or unmute. Oh, no, okay.
Whatever it is now, keep it.
Cool. I'm Bill Salganic. I live in Clemens Crossing in Columbia in District 4. I come tonight to speak in support of the recommendations of the Housing Affordability Coalition. Thank you, council members, for listening patiently to all of us on all sides of the issues and for weighing your decisions thoughtfully. You have a serious responsibility, and you have tremendous power to set the course for the future of Howard County. In spite of that tremendous power, however, there's one thing you can't do. You can't repeal or amend the law of supply and demand. Demand for housing in Howard County is high because this is a wonderful place to live. The supply is insufficient, as documented in the HOCO by Design report and the Housing Opportunities Master Plan. The current HOCO by Design recommendations set a housing target which is too low to meet expected future demand, never mind make up for the current shortage. When demand exceeds supply, prices will go up. For those of us who are current homeowners, that might seem like a good thing, but for those who want to live in the county, our teachers, our public safety employees, our children, that means affordability barriers will be rising. It is in the interest of all of us for these folks to be able to live in the county. And those barriers, those affordability barriers, are already high. Nearly 1/4 of renters in the county are paying 50% or more of their income in monthly rent, according to Census Bureau data compiled by the Association of Community Services. And that's not 1/4 of low-income renters. That's 1/4 of all renters in Howard County. Nearly 15 years ago, I worked on the county's first 10-year plan to end homelessness, then on a 5-year extension. Newsflash, we haven't ended homelessness. Some homelessness is triggered by mental illness, by substance abuse, by domestic violence, but much of the homelessness in Howard County is triggered when a family that is living paycheck to paycheck and is already overburdened by rent or mortgage payments suffers some kind of financial setback. It could be reduced hours at work, an expensive car repair, or an illness not covered fully by insurance. So an undersupply of housing causes homelessness. Not all homelessness, but a good deal of it. I support all the recommendations of the Housing Affordability Coalition. I know you've heard extensive testimony on a lot of the points, so I just want to focus on the one that you've already heard so much about tonight, that the housing targets be increased to 2,000 units a year, with 25% of those, or 500 a year, affordable, and 10% of the units for people with disabilities.
Thank you so much, Mr. Salganik. Next, we have Barry Mehta, followed by Eric Greenberg, followed by Ray Serrano, who will be followed by May Beal.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Barry Mehta. Lived in our wonderful county for the last 43 years. Sitting here this evening, the repeated theme that I've heard is that housing prices are unaffordable, rents are unaffordable. Interestingly, I was reading the September DPZ Digest, where our new DPZ director, Ms. Julia Eisenberg, wrote, and I quote, "Howard County, like the country, is facing exorbitant housing prices, exacerbated by a critical housing shortage, especially for young professionals and service workers." I'm sure that the problem of unaffordable housing is obvious to all of us. The question is, what are we going to do about it? What is the county doing about it? I think we have talked enough about the problem. We need to talk about the solutions. I believe the critical housing shortage is due to two main factors. One is allocation for development. Allocation is based on school capacity constraints. We need to get ahead of the school capacity curve by increasing school capacity so that development is not restricted due to school shortages. The second factor is the ease of development. And the ease of development depends on three separate factors: availability of public water, availability of public sewer, and development restrictions imposed by numerous zoning codes. For availability of water and sewer, we need to dramatically increase capital projects for extending both water and sewer availability, especially in the eastern part of the county. Our county has good credit rating and so good bonding capacity. I request that our public water and sewer projects, capital projects, be doubled or tripled to make more developable land available. The Rockburn Branch area in Elkridge is ideally suited for this. I know from my personal experience that every time you turn around, there are more rules controlling development and making it more difficult and more expensive to develop, which obviously results in higher home prices. I request the council to initiate a study to look at all the existing zoning codes and see if some of them can be revised or even eliminated to provide easier and quicker development for new development. In summary, county needs to help developers increase the buildable land supply. This is the only way home prices can be controlled. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Next, we have Eric Greenberg, followed by Ray Serrano, followed by May Beal and Dana Soar.
Here's some written testimony. Good evening, Council. I am Eric Greenberg, and I live in District 4 in Columbia. While I am the co-chair of the Columbia Association Board of Directors and the Columbia Council representative from River Hill, I am testifying today as an individual. My statements reflect my views only and not those of the Columbia Association, its board, or the Village of River Hill. Before I begin, I will note that while today is a hearing on the amendments to the updated general plan, the amendments have not yet been posted. Therefore, I request an additional hearing for the public to be able to provide inputs on the amendments that will be filed. The general plan must be designed for the benefits of the current tax-paying Howard County residents. Specifically, it must preserve Newtown zoning, which is what makes Columbia special. Newtown zoning provides for the open space that everybody living in or visiting Columbia enjoys. Newtown zoning already provides for a wide range of housing options, including single-family homes, townhomes, condominiums, and apartments, all of which are present in Columbia. I worry that HOCO by design may result in changes to Newtown zoning that could lead to overdevelopment and harm Columbia in the long run. We are starting to see the impacts of overdevelopment today with an overcrowded school system that has insufficient transportation resources. Frustrated by the school bus meltdown, many people want to throw the bus contractors or administration under the bus, assuming that bus ever arrives. However, I believe this is a result of a lack of investment in expanding school capacity needed to support an ever-growing student population. In the last 10 years, Howard County Public Schools added over 5,000 students, but did not add enough capacity to support this growth. The resulting school overcrowding has led to increased class sizes, 250 portable classrooms, and cutting bus service to 3,500 students. A better solution would have been to plan for and build the necessary school capacity to serve these additional students in the first place. As we've seen over the last decade, overdevelopment does not solve overcrowding. Before adding well over 20,000 new housing units over the next 15 years, it is imperative that the county's school system, as well as other key resources, including our healthcare facilities and transportation infrastructure, are all robust enough to effectively serve the current population. Just as important, we must preserve what makes Columbia special by not altering Newtown zoning in an attempt to add more density. This will ensure that both Columbia and the rest of Howard County remain one of the best places to live, both now and in the future. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Ray Serrano.
Hi, good evening, Ray. You've now been elevated. Feel free to unmute yourself when you're ready.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Great. Hi, my name is Dr. Ray Serrano, and I guess I call Ellicott City my home for now. So I'm approaching today just for an amendment that I think that's very serious. I've got this kind of a little bit of background on me. I have this little fancy doctorate and master's in health policy and health system strengthening that I guess makes me some kind of expert in public health. But I really want to discuss the vital aspect of HOCO by design discussions, specifically the Apfo or the Adequate Public Facilities Ordinance as it pertains to hospitals and healthcare centers. The draft plan is a hefty 350 pages that makes significant changes to Apfo, and this is all done before the Apfo Review Committee formally starts in late 2024. What really grabs my attention is the non-inclusion of hospitals in Apfo, and there's 5 reasons why I want to highlight that's a big deal in this general plan. Number 1 is healthcare access and wait times Our local hospitals, like Howard County General Hospital and Laurel Regional Medical Center, often operate under yellow and red alerts due to high patient volumes. I personally spent 6 hours in the waiting room at the emergency department at Howard County Hospital. Not fun, but it shows a real issue. Number two is population growth. Our county has grown. Obviously, since 2010, it's grown 41,000 residents. Our 65 plus population is increased from 2000 to 2040 is expected to increase by 342%. Which leads to the third point, which is the demand for hospital-based care. It's going to soar, specifically for psychiatric and adult behavioral health care. With an aging population, we're expecting a high rise of dementia diagnoses and a strong need for inpatient healthcare centers. Number four is emergency response. Hospitals are critical during the times of emergency, as we saw during the COVID-19 pandemic. Having them included in Apfo helps us prepare for healthcare capacity during a crisis, so we can respond more effectively. And lastly, is if there is precedent in other places. Currently, our neighbor to the south at Coogee County, that we call Montgomery County, includes hospitals and healthcare clinics in its Apfo. In essence, we should prepare for the healthcare needs of our growing aging population while considering the impact of our infrastructure and emergency response. We should not get bogged down in the debate about private rights versus public needs. 6-hour wait times for emergency care is not good. Moreover, the recent pandemic shows that we can't afford more years of indifference. And so, in light with what everyone is saying, as a quirky twist to Jim Rouse's wisdom, let's work so that the janitor and the CEO can have access to hospital services with the same enthusiasm. So please consider amending the general plan to ensure that our hospitals and urgent care centers are linked to our growth. And again, I want to thank you for your time and attention.
Thank you, Dr. Serrano. Next, we have May Beal, followed by Dana Soar, followed by Michael Starnes.
Can you hear me? Good evening, everyone. My name is May A. Beal. I'm a senior, have lived in Columbia, Maryland for 51 years, and have one son, Terrence. Howard County housing crisis impacts seniors, young adults, families, people with disabilities, and our lower-paid residents from all spectrums of our workforce. I'm here tonight to speak on behalf of our seniors by supporting the solution the Housing Affordability Coalition recommending to reinforce the goal of allowing 2,000 housing units each year, with 25% being affordable and 10% designated for low-income people who are disabled or seniors. The housing crisis has not personally impacted me. I am primarily concerned about the plight of our seniors. Seniors are one of the most vulnerable residents in Howard County regarding affordable housing. Many are on a fixed income, and housing is not affordable. Many spend the majority of their retirement income on rent, and for many, their monthly income doesn't cover their rent. Some seniors have disabilities, and many houses are not ADA compliant. Some programs, such as the income housing credit, are in place, but it does not necessarily target seniors. It is often up to the builders to decide how many units are set aside for seniors and low-income residents. In some instances, seniors must also meet HUD's income criteria for approved dwellings and fill out paperwork regarding their eligibility status. How many seniors do you know, and I know you know some, are really knowledgeable enough to take on the daunting task of completing all the necessary paperwork? Many resources and programs are available, as we all know, to assist seniors with housing needs in Howard County. But number one is the information regarding the availability of housing accessible to the seniors and those who can benefit the most. Number two, are we really committed to ensuring seniors are educated, informed about how, when, and where affordable houses are available? The need for more affordable housing is unquestionable. We must create more easily accessible housing incentives by continuing to organize and advocate for seniors and low-income residents. We always talk about a safety blanket, but is the blanket really safe? Again, I support the solution of the Housing Affordable Coalition that they recommended. And thanks for the time, and thanks to council for indulging all of us. And remember, it's not one and done.
Thank you, May. Next, we have Dana Soar, followed by Michael Starnes, followed by Steve Miller.
Hi, good evening, Dana. You've now been elevated. Feel free to unmute yourself when you're ready.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
All right, good evening. Sorry I'm not there in person, missing all the fun. I am Dana Soar, Deputy Director of Bridges to Housing Stability. Bridges has 17 employees and 1,800 donors and other supporters in Howard County. Tonight, the Bridges staff wanted me to ensure that in all of the technical discussion that we're having about the general plan, that we continue to center humanity, people in the discussion. Every year, Bridges provides housing services to hundreds of county residents, so we know firsthand that our crisis is getting worse every month. 1 in 4 Howard County households earns less than $75,000, which puts them in the ranks, many of them in the ranks of low-income earners. Who are they? They're seniors, young adults, people with disabilities, and essential workers in our community who don't earn high wages. For most people, housing costs have continued to rise far faster than income. You've already heard that over 13,000 Howard County households now pay unaffordable rents, and nearly 7,000 of them pay over 50 cents of every gross dollar of income on rent. Housing's the biggest expense in most household budgets. So what happens when housing gets too expensive? Everything else gets squeezed. The ability to afford healthy food, proper medical care, ongoing education, and savings to purchase a home. As you heard so eloquently from Bill Solganic just a few minutes ago, households that are overburdened with housing costs become more insecure, to the point where any disruption in income or an unexpected expense can dislocate them because the landlord doesn't get paid on time. This is happening far too frequently in our community. According to our Sheriff's Department, in the past 12 months, 1,248 Howard County households have been evicted from their homes for failure to pay rent or have been forced to move to avoid eviction. The legal, financial, and health consequences of their dislocation will impact them for years and sometimes generations to come. Bridges would like to pose a few questions about where we stand as a community. First, does anyone truly believe with some of the testimony tonight that our housing crisis is simply a myth that's been schemed up by greedy housing developers? If so, please take the time to read the HOCO by Design plan itself or any of its feeder documents and studies where you'll find abundant data about our housing crisis. Or come visit us at Bridges or other nonprofits like Grassroots, HopeWorks, Springboard, Community Action Council, and others. We're in the trenches every day with this problem, and we'll all tell you that unaffordable housing is the key driver of our growing caseloads. Second question, is there any doubt that we've been underproducing housing? Again, the data's there. It shows clearly that we produce a lower ratio of new housing for our workforce than any other nearby county. In simpler terms, our housing supply falls far short of demand. As I believe most of us already know, when the supply of an essential product such as housing doesn't meet demand, prices necessarily go up. The basic rule of supply and demand is inflating housing prices in Howard County far beyond the capacity of most of our vulnerable residents. So can we be satisfied with HOCO by Design in current form, which would reduce the rate at which we create new housing? If the housing shortage gets even worse, won't our housing crisis get worse? Of course it will. So for those reasons, Bridges strongly supports the recommendations that you've heard tonight from the Housing Affordability Coalition, we should have a housing allocation increase to 2,000 units a year. 500 should be affordable. 10% of those should meet ADA requirements. They can be rentals, they can be home ownership opportunities, and we need to open up the county to missing middle and multifamily housing opportunities across the county because our housing market is creating increased segregation by race in our community because, as you heard from Peter Engel before, race is often a proxy for income, unfortunately, in our community. We understand the tension that arises at the prospect of additional housing development because of the impact on schools. Our question is, can't we work together as a community to find solutions, including additional revenue sources, to ensure that we can have more housing and great schools? Of course we can. After all, we need to find ways to ensure that our children continue to receive a quality education and actually have an affordable place to live in the community when they finish their schooling. To put things in context, a simple thought experiment. If our county's policies were creating a desperate food shortage for our residents, would we seriously consider passing laws to reduce the amount of food available to our children, our seniors, our essential workers, and our most vulnerable neighbors? Why are we considering doing just that with our housing supply? Last question. It's now the third general plan going back to the year 2000 that's highlighted the problem of unaffordable housing. When
That's your
exactly
time.
will we address this crisis? If not now, when?
Thank you.
If not this council, who? Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Michael Starnes, followed by Steve Miller, then Anna Rivera. Michael Starnes? All right.
Hey, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, super. Good evening, council members. I speak tonight in favor of the adoption of HOCO by design, as well as the goals from the Housing Coalition, especially around increased housing production and around affordability, accessibility goals. The proposed general plan is not controversial, and it's a very good start. The benefits of HOCO by design are numerous. It would allow housing, zoning, and transit to work better together. Not only that, but similar counties all around the state of Maryland are adopting similar general plans, such as Montgomery County, a little to our south. Housing is not really a true market or a fair market. We don't have limits on how much food can be grown or how much movies can be made, but we have very strict caps on how much housing can be produced in the state. Even though the population everywhere generally goes up over time, we're stuck with these very harsh rules that limit the amount of housing that can be built. If you can only build so much, how is it possible that we continue to provide affordable housing for everyone? It simply isn't possible. We sit at the end of decades of housing underproduction, and HOCO by design with the affordability and housing production goals is a really great start. We should be biased towards more ample housing production. I support the amendments to increase housing production. If we want to make housing affordable for everyone, especially groups that have been historically left out of home ownership, we need rules that make housing very easy to produce and truly abundant, such as buy right options. Cities like Minneapolis and Wellington, New Zealand have increased housing production dramatically with similar plans, and they're doing absolutely fine. And housing prices are normalizing too. If we want to make housing Howard County truly affordable for everyone, we need a general plan that envisions affordability, not more parking minimums. If your quote unquote community character is based on exclusion and things like restricted deed covenants, we simply need to change that character. Target allocations for housing production should be increased and made possible at higher density levels. In short, the only way to get better results is do things differently. And I believe that the proposed amendments in the general plan make sense. And one thing of note, if you can see behind me, some of the most treasured parts of the county are the densest parts. So I think we have very little to fear in comparison to the proposed plan. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Steve Miller, followed by Anna Rivera.
All right. Good evening, Chair Rigby and members of the council here and in cyberspace. My name is Steve Miller, and I'm the chair of the Legislative Committee for the Howard County Association of Realtors. On behalf of HCAR, an organization of over 2,100 real estate professionals, we express our support with suggested amendments to the HOCO by Design general plan. We understand the critical nature of this plan as a national trend of lack of housing opportunities and affordability impacts our community firsthand. With the goal in mind of finding a tangible balance between what we need and what we desire as a community, we believe the general plan could actually do more to address this problem and create proactive solutions as Howard County continues to mature. Our association has been working very closely, reviewing the general plan in addition to prioritizing conversations with the members of this council, the administration, as well as our membership to get a finger on the pulse of this entire process and determine what is the best way forward. We commend the county government for the intentional development of this plan through the encouragement of community engagement and input. HCAR believes that through this lens, these topics are addressed provides a reflection of how community is valued in our county. Challenges that currently exist and lay ahead, including a lack of housing supply and lack of affordable housing options, limited variety of housing options from starter homes to practical senior residences, the need for a pathway to home ownership by way of the support of our county housing programs, a lack of a universal framework for the implementation and utilization of accessible dwelling units, and many others will dictate how the county will be shaped in accordance with this legislation. We would be remiss if we did not acknowledge that Chapter 10 of the general plan, titled Managing Growth, would limit housing production through Apfo to levels that are well below the known demand and need for housing in the county. In addition to constraining the housing supply, the county's growth management policies encourage developers to build large, higher-end, single-family detached homes and maximize profit margins. And this is a discussion that we've had with members of the council here, as well as virtually. In short, a lot of the policies that we have inherited create a situation where single-family homes are more tenable for the developers, both from a profit margin standpoint as well as practicality, getting it from shovel to door. Despite recognizing the need for 51,000 new housing units between now and 2040, including 31,000 units to accommodate the demand projected by the 59,000 new jobs in this county per the market research and demand forecast that was prepared by the county's consultant, and 20,000 units to meet pent-up demand tied to people who work in Howard County but live outside of the county. The Apfo allocation chart would only add 23,694 housing units through 2040, less than half of the identified housing demand. Actual production likely will be even lower, as projects that receive an allocation must then meet the school capacity test. Table 10.2 indicates that for the years 2020 to 2024, a total of 3,146 units were placed on hold, which calculates to an average of 629 units on hold during that period. That represents 40% of the 1,580 units allocated annually under the general plan. There is no indication in Chapter 10 as to what quantity or percentage of housing units that are placed on hold due to insufficient capacity ultimately are built, either because capacity becomes available or because a maximum 5-year hold policy has lapsed. The bottom line is that for now 30 years, the county has lived with a system that was structured to dampen growth by intentionally limiting housing production to levels that are well below known demand. And the general plan would unfortunately continue that. Therefore, along with the county convening a task force within a year after adoption of the general plan to review and recommend changes at Apfo, we recommend that Chapter 10 should be revised to establish specific policies and proposed changes to Apfo, taking into consideration the planning board recommendations for the council to increase housing allocations. This can be done by establishing language that would allow for the general plan to be a guide for future Apfo amendments to allow the county to meet its housing production and diversification goals, thus ensuring that Apfo does not act as an indirect barrier to the production of those and other types of low-impact residential development in the county before adopting the general plan. Furthermore, the county should use the general plan as the vehicle through which it establishes a policy position in favor of specific exemptions rather than asking the Apfo task force to, quote, develop recommendations as to the applicability of Apfo to ADUs, age-restricted adult housing, and missing middle housing projects. Furthermore, Apfo guidance that has been published by the state of Maryland Department of Planning states exemptions can be given to direct development to specific locations to encourage certain types of development. Frederick County has them, Anne Arundel County has them. Coincidentally, their Apfo legislation came after ours. They took the good parts of ours and the not so good parts, learned from it, and made it better. In closing, Please do consider these exemptions. I have more that are in my written testimony. I appreciate the opportunity again to speak before you, and thank you for your cooperation and all of your hard work so far.
Thank you, Mr. Miller. We appreciate it. Next, we have Anna Rivera, followed by Kelly Kleinfelter. Who will be followed by Jansen Evelyn.
Hello, this is my first testimony. So, hi everyone. My name is Anna Rivera, and I have been fortunate enough to live in Howard County all of my life. And though I didn't realize it until I went to Hood College in Frederick, growing up here has been a significant part of my identity and my worldview. I grew up believing that my family was of the lower socioeconomic status of Howard County as we... Sorry, I lost my place. As we always lived paycheck to paycheck in a trailer and faced the very real possibility of homelessness ourselves once or twice, but managed to just scrape by. I grew up to believe my family to be the minority while I watched my schoolmates take extravagant trips or go to Disney World each year with their families. That's how I've always seen Howard County, a community of abundance while a minority of families struggled. Now, I have worked as a housing advocate for Bridges to Housing Stability for a short 7 months. And within that small time period, I have been immeasurably humbled. In the entirety of my life that I've lived in Howard County, I believed homelessness to be the 1 or 2 panhandlers I pass by on the streets every now and then. Today, I work with my peers with a never-ending, full caseload of people who need our help just to survive in Howard County. We get calls daily from people who have been turned away from the Howard County shelter because they are at full capacity. And even with the resources Bridges has to offer, it has been an incredible challenge to house people here simply because it's not affordable. I just rehoused a client a couple of weeks ago, and the price tag was well over $6,000 for prorated rent, security deposit, and first month's rent that were required for move-in. And this number will undoubtedly increase by next year if something isn't done. I've done everything that I was told I needed to do. I went to good schools. I never got in trouble. I went to college and got my degree, and I have a good job that pays more than minimum wage. I can tell you there's absolutely no way I would be able to afford to move out of my trailer if I had to dish out over $6,000 to move in. If I can't do it, how can we expect others who haven't had the same privileges and opportunities that we've had? According to the U.S. Census Bureau, renter-occupied households in the lowest income quintile had a median cost ratio of 62.7% in 2021. That means that half of the renter-occupied households in this quintile paid gross rent that was more than 62.7% of their total household income. And many places require that your income is 3 times the rent. Compare this to the average renter. The U.S. Census Bureau also stated that the median cost ratio for all renter-occupied households increased from 29.3% in 2019 to 30.6% in 2021. Please understand that the lack of affordable housing is a form of discrimination against disenfranchised populations, including disabled, those of lower socioeconomic status, people of color, among others. The position you take on this will tell your constituents which lives do or do not matter to you. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next, we have Kelly Kleinfelter, followed by Jansen Evelyn, then Brent Lovelace.
Hi, good evening, Kelly. You've now been elevated. Feel free to unmute yourself when you're ready and turn on your camera if you wish.
Thank you. Good evening, Chair Rigby, Vice Chair Young, and members Dr. Jones, Ms. Walsh, and Mr. Youngman. My name is Kelly Kleinfelter, and I'm the president of Howard Progressive Project, a teacher, a Wild Lake High School mom, and a resident of District 4 in Columbia. HPP is here tonight to call for a plan that makes sense for the future of all of our people. The people who already live in Howard County, the people who serve in our essential jobs in Howard County and want to live here but cannot, and spend way too much of their time and treasure commuting here, and our children, in whom we've invested so much and who want to live here as adults. A plan that makes sense will expand our housing supply. We should build 2,000 new homes each year, of which 25% should be affordable for households earning less than 60% of the median income. Further, 10% of the affordable homes should meet ADA requirements. These homes could make space for the many people who live and work in Howard County and are struggling today with housing. Our teachers, our paras, our custodians, our frontline workers in our hospital, our child care centers, and our restaurants and our other service establishments. A plan that makes sense will allow multifamily and missing middle housing like duplexes, quadplexes, and ADUs by right in more areas of the county, because these housing types are normally more affordable than single-family detached homes. A plan that makes sense, it'll create more incentives for the development of housing for seniors and others who have low incomes and/or disabilities. This community is and was designed as an inclusive community. Let's show it by building policy that does it. Let's not just talk it, let's do it. A plan that makes sense will guarantee that today's affordable housing is not lost when its ownership changes. We should set a goal of zero net loss of existing housing for households with incomes below 60% of area median, and we should employ preservation and revitalization strategies to ensure we hit the goal. This is critical for so many families, including our families struggling with homelessness. Let's recall, and I know I've said this to you before, that last May, 548 of our HCPSS children were homeless. That's 1% of our children in our public schools, equivalent to the entire population of my child's middle school. We are the wealthiest county in the wealthiest state in the wealthiest nation humanity has built. Homelessness is our public policy failure, and it's our responsibility to solve. One way to ease the pressure on our housing crisis and our school funding squeeze is through the redevelopment of Gateway. We should establish targets now for commercial housing, school capacity, and transportation in Gateway, and we should move forward rapidly with that redevelopment plan. We have businesses large and small knocking on our door, along with home buyers knocking on our door, and they want to pay taxes here in Howard County. Let's welcome them. If we choose not to expand our housing supply in our general plan update, we need to be clear. It's not a choice to preserve the status quo or to protect our schools and our other infrastructure. It's a choice to put our county on the path to a deteriorating quality of life. A plan that makes sense is one where we invest in smart growth that's dense and green, that revitalizes our aging infrastructure and raises fees on developers, which you as the county council have the power to do. It expands the county's tax base, and it maintains our status as a favorable place for businesses that pay good wages to their workers and much needed taxes into our county's coffers. We need to build smart and broaden our tax base so that we can build the world-class brick and mortar schools that every one of our Howard County students deserve and all the other institutions that our people rightly demand. Let's grow our economy and extend our housing opportunities to our young people, our seniors, our frontline workers, our pandemic heroes, our neighbors with disabilities, our neighbors struggling with homelessness, our neighbors choosing between food and rent. Let's grow our neighborhoods and our transportation infrastructure. Let's grow our small businesses by extending to their employees the opportunity to work and live and pay taxes in Howard County. As always, thank you, Council, for the work you do for Howard County, and thank you to all the folks who have worked so hard on HOCO by Design. Thanks for the chance to testify again this evening. Good night.
Thank you. Good evening. Next, we have Jansen Evelyn, followed by Brent Lovelace, followed by Rabbi Joanne Heigelman.
Good evening, Council Chair Rigby and members of the County Council. My name is Jansen Evelyn, and I live in Clemens Crossing, Columbia. Professionally, I work extensively and exclusively in the subject matter of land use policy, including implementation of a jurisdiction's general development plan. I am also a member of the HOCO NAACP, Howard Progressive Project, and the Affordability Coalition. I am, however, speaking in my personal individual capacity. I've heard several not in my backyard adjacent residents invoke the name of the county's biggest developer historically, Jim Rouse, in a way that somehow insinuates that Columbia was supposed to stay stagnant, stuck as a model of planned suburban sprawl. It wasn't. Columbia was Rouse's response to the related problems of center city decay and suburban sprawl, a planned community intended to combine the best of both worlds, and it was supposed to keep growing. Also, the general plan does not purport to change any new town provisions. Any changes to new town zoning would have to be considered through a public process to update the zoning regulations. So, what can a GDP achieve in this moment in time? If budgets are moral documents, then the once-in-a-decade GDP is the Hammurabi Code. It is a foundational North Star. For Howard County, this means strategies designed to strengthen economic competitiveness, reduce and reverse environmental degradation, and ensure that the benefits of development and growth are widely shared across the lines of race, ethnicity, and class, while countering related inequities in the distribution of resources and opportunities. Howard County's housing crisis is impacting seniors, and as such, I support the Housing Affordability Coalition's recommendations, but I'm going to quickly touch on a few. We must expand our housing supply, including our workforce housing. Several of the ways are via missing middle housing, such as cottage-style apartments, duplexes, triplexes, 2-over-2s, quadplexes, which are compatible in scale and form with the detached single-family homes, so they don't affect the neighborhood character, but they are more affordable because they have different price points. We should also detach ADUs. They should be allowed by right in more areas of the county. In addition, we should just look to the south in Anne Arundel County, where they unanimously passed and detached ADUs in a council that was 4-3 Democrats and Republicans. We should incentivize redevelopment of activity centers, specifically village centers, and denser development near transit centers. By the way, I hope the community has an opportunity to testify after the amendments have been introduced, and I hope the council thinks long and hard about utilizing region plans as a way to address the various needs of the county. This GDP is going to require balance in many competing demands and realities. You're in a position of great responsibility and power over how the direction of this county must evolve. I end with a Jim Rouse quote. We must hold fast to the realization that our cities are for people, and unless they work well for people, they are not working well at all, even if that means we don't get to our golf tee times as quickly as we used to. Thank you.
And next we have Brent Lovelace, followed by Rabbi Joanne Heigelman, followed by Lois Mikula.
Good evening. My name is Brent Lovelace. I'm from the PTA Council of Howard County as the legislative chair representing them this evening. Tonight, we could go on about many items, but tonight is about amendments. We're in the last throes of the general plan, and we have many policies that address these. One is no school should operate over 100% capacity. One is no intentional overcrowding with exemptions. Another, mandate development pay an accurate, fair market rate for impacts. Another, no intentional concentrations of poverty. Another, solutions should not come from lowering standards or changing the units of measure. Another, growth should be predictable for capital planning. Another, we should not intentionally create things that create funding competitions within the school system. Another, update all education funding and protections for new exemptions and standards adjustments. When you make big changes, you have to look at all the formulas that are affected by it. Eliminate reliance on relocatable classrooms, trailers, and last, things that affect school safety and risk exposure. With that in mind, we looked through the implementation plan and mapped it to some of these policies. There are roughly 70 to 80 suggestions for amendments. These are red flags, things that either pose a conflict to these policies that we've shown you, and in some cases, some that could be ameliorated if other things take place. There are a lot of variables here. Likewise, if certain items pass within the general plan, we may need additional protections and things that are reflected in this policy statement. I'm not going with a scripted item here. All of you have heard my testimony over and over. You know, we represent all the schools of Howard County that have an active local PTA. We have one or two that need to rejoin, and we have a new one, Guilford Park. Ironically, dealing with a capacity issue. We got a new one, but unfortunately, our demands are exceeding our ability to provide them. Tonight, you've heard a lot of testimony about the need to accelerate different items. Well, we have the need to provide adequate public facilities, classrooms, and education spaces for all our children, including handicapped and special needs children, regardless of what rates of growth we choose. And to decouple the requirements to provide that is a red flag to our organization. Obviously, that is a lot of exemptions, a lot of amendments to create in a short period of time. We're willing to work with you on any of them. We will send a draft of how these map. And please don't take it as a item set in stone. There is a lot of items that, depending on how you explain them and how you interpret them, could go against other of our policies, or possibly we may resolve so they aren't in conflict. I would also like to say, I'm going to go on an aside as on a personal item. I was on the APFO committee, pretty hotly contested many years ago, when the items we proposed was providing exemptions to the housing unit allocations for affordable housing. I believe that's still in code. If I'm wrong, I apologize. But that was done in negotiation to try to get the thresholds for allowable overcrowding down. We did get some concessions there, but not without a hard fight. What I'm trying to say is we don't have growth targets. We have growth caps with exemptions. If they were targets, you wouldn't have a random amount of units that could come and go through the exemption process on the top end of that scale. I would strongly encourage looking into inclusive housing and inclusive housing requirements if that is our goal and what we're trying to achieve. Like I said, 80-some amendments are necessary to align with policies, simple, plain language, common sense policies that most of our members, almost all unanimously, have supported over the years. And I think it would behoove us to take those seriously. Thank you.
Ms. Young?
Thanks. Just a reminder to everybody that our amendments are due on Monday. So when you mentioned that you had 80 that you wanted to send over, that means our time is very short, Mr. Lovelace.
Absolutely.
Okay.
And
80.
Yes.
You said 80, right? Yes.
This process, in and of itself, we run the risk. Right now, we're testifying on amendments we don't know whether or not they will be there or whether or not we're going to support. So we're going in the blind. We appreciate the effort to talk to this topic so that amendments can be generated that we would support and want to go forward. But there is a risk when we do it in this manner.
Sorry, is Mr. Lovelace answering a question or is he still testifying?
Yes,
I'm not sure what's happening.
Ms. Young had asked a question that he's responding to.
Yep.
I will conclude for Mr. Jones.
All right.
Thank you, Mr. Lovelace.
Thank you.
And I look forward to seeing some of those amendments. I don't know all 80 of them, but.
Thank you.
Okay.
Next, we have Rabbi Joanne Heigelman, followed by Lois Mikula, followed by Thelma Davis.
Hi, thank you for the opportunity to testify. I'm Rabbi Joanne Yocheved Heiligman, a Howard County resident, homeowner, and clergy person for over 22 years. Our council must be visionary and pass this plan, though I have to say I really like a lot of the suggestions that I heard this evening that earlier. You'll get which side I'm on. My 59-year-old brother, Frank, has been 100% physically disabled since a workplace accident in 2000. After a 10-day ICU stay and hospital stay in Pittsburgh, we had to move him here so that we would be able to support him. After 2 more ICU stays 2 years ago, Frank is on morphine and has had to give up driving. His income is around $1,800 a month disability before they take out medical premiums and copays. Obviously, Frank can't afford Howard County. By the grace of God, my husband and I were able to buy a condo for him to live here, and we subsidize his housing ourselves by about $500 a month. My husband is a saint. My 3 adult children have grown up here and know no other home. All 3 have multiple special needs and need the support of remaining in the community they know and love. My 30-year-old son, David, has autism. He works at Giant and Hickory Ridge. He worships and volunteers his musical talent to lead services at several congregations in Fulton, Columbia, and Ellicott City. David is so deeply planted in our community that to move him elsewhere would dissolve his support system, religious, and social life. It would be devastating. David's income, including his SSI, is $1,600 in a good month. That won't cover an apartment in the area where he needs to live, much less food, transportation, and other essentials. But David does need to move out and become independent. He needs to live near the transit hub because anytime you have to take 2 buses in Howard County, it takes 2 hours, an hour and a half if you're lucky. Naomi, my 28-year-old, who has a college degree and has completed an apprenticeship, works full-time and lives in a basement apartment sharing her kitchenette with the family's washer and dryer and sharing her bathroom when the family has out-of-town guests. We still help her with food. My 25-year-old could only afford to move out of the house by taking over the 2nd bedroom in the condo that we brought from my brother. Quickly, very few families can afford to do what we've done. We need affordable housing. We need projects like Patuxent Wood, and you know the rest. And ADUs.
Thank you, Rabbi Heiligman. Lois Mikola, followed by Thelma Davis, followed by Laura Wisely, followed by Bernie Flowers, and then we're going to take a 10-minute break. You treat yourself to the county's finest vending machines out in the hallway.
Good evening. My name is Lois Mikola. I'm the Interim Executive Director for the Association of Community Services of Howard County. On behalf of ACS and our over 150 member organizations and community advocates, I'm here to reaffirm our support for the recommendations made by the Housing Affordability Coalition, which would increase housing allocations to 2,000 new homes each year, with 25% being affordable for those with a household income under 60% of the area median. Additional recommendations call for modifying the land use map, providing incentives for special needs housing, and preserving existing affordable housing. ACS members serve many of our county residents for whom affordable housing is just a dream. These recommendations from the Housing Affordability Coalition could begin to make those dreams a reality. As our self-sufficiency indicators report shows, it takes approximately $75,000 per year for families to be self-sufficient and financially stable in Howard County. We know that about 16,000 families have incomes below this level. Affordable housing is a critical need. Creating more of it in our county needs to be an imperative. Our report also demonstrates that despite great wealth in Howard County, our residents experience significant racial disparities. In 2020, the median income was 47% higher for Asian households and 38% higher for white households than the median income for black households.
and there are indications that income inequality is increasing. We are pleased that Howard County by Design fully incorporates equity into all facets of the plan and hope that its implementation will address these disparities. Lastly, and I do want to be brief, I want to highlight the critical role nonprofit organizations play in our county by providing a soft infrastructure that supports and enriches the lives of all of our residents. It is too often overlooked or taken for granted. As the county looks at the investments needed to implement HOCO by Design, investing in the capacity of our nonprofits to continue providing those services that contribute so much to our quality of life must also be a priority. Thank you for your time and the opportunity to represent the Howard County nonprofit community. Please let me know how we can be a resource to you.
Thank you, Ms. Mikola. And thank you for returning from retirement to support ACS. Next, we have Thelma Davis, followed by Laura Wisely, followed by Bernie Flowers.
Good evening. This is something I would never do, so.
Well, we appreciate your bravery.
I am Thelma Davis. You see me. I am a grandmother of 9, a mother of 3, a great-grandmother of 3, and 1 on the way. I am also homeless right now as we speak. Affordable housing is what me and my kids need. I have 2 that just went off to college that come home every weekend to the hotel because they think something's going to happen. They want to be near their aunt, and they my nieces. I've raised 10 kids at one time. All of them has graduated, and they all constantly coming out of school. Affordable housing is what I need. I struggle from, I guess, in my mid-40s. I'm not going to tell you how old I am now, because you wouldn't believe me if I told you that I was 60, but I am. And I'm raising a granddaughter now. That's 1 that the court gave me, plus my great-granddaughter. I have 2 kids I can't even turn my back on or leave alone. I'm a mortician by trade, but I can't go to work because I have 2 kids that have cystic fibrosis. Skylar back there has chronic eczema and asthma, but she's on medication that I have to give to her personally myself every month. Housing, I was born and raised in Howard County all my life. The struggle is real, and I don't want nobody to ever think that it's not, because it is. I struggle every day, but my struggles don't stop me from helping the next person. We need to make affordable housing for everyone, not just me and my family. I met so many along the way, and like I said, I have not much to give, but if I got it, I give it to the next one, because I'm supposed to pass it forward. Like somebody helped me, I help the next one. I'm working with Bridges right now to find a place for me and the kids to live. But homeless is real. I fought, when I tell you I fought to get assistance, I fought. And I didn't know if it was the color of my skin or what it was. I first got homeless on December the 9th. I'll never forget. I paid every cent I had, I was paying into a hotel for shelter. I fought to get to assistance. I had to do me. I had to be me. I had to go out there and get whatever I got. My VA benefit, I use it. Kids come first. I will feed them before I feed myself. So I wish that you would please listen to all the testimonies and make affordable housing real for everybody. And I thank you for your time.
Thank you for your time. Next, we have Bernie Flowers. All right, well then we will take our 10-minute break, and we will join together again at 9:28. All right, we are now resuming, and we will begin with Laura Wisely.
Good evening. I'm Laura Wisely. I live in Main Street in Elkridge, and I've been listening to the work sessions, and I have been surprised how many times I've heard the words Elkridge area and Route 1 corridor come up repeatedly over and over in every work session. It is the elephant in the room that needs to be dealt with. I have hosted many community forums for Elkridge residents to speak, and the theme is the same: lack of investment back into the community. I do have several amendments, but I'm just going to talk about a few and concentrating on the Route 1 corridor plan. First of all, what's missing? While there is a new schools chapter, school placement must be part of the Route 1 plan, as where housing goes, schools need to follow. So why aren't potential school sites located on the flume? The Elkridge South District as a mixed-use activity center. The area designated as Elkridge South District designation cannot be considered a mixed-use activity center. Calling it a mixed-use activity center is just the next failed CAC, which ended up with this council telling developers no businesses want to move into this space. So why can't Elkridge have dedicated communal space to meet our infrastructure needs? Land use is complicated along Route 1. Why is the only answer to revitalization residential mixed-use activity center? Where did all the dollars go made in all the housing density that has happened on Route 1? It surely hasn't been spent on community amenities or historic preservation. The northern end of Route 1 needs businesses, opportunities to engage, community centers, and open space. And oh yes, we need schools. Not overcrowded classrooms, trailers, or long bus rides. I like the town center concept. We must make this opportunity become our anchor point of our community. We can then feed this concept into future redevelopment and build our character. The Redevelopment Authority. This team of players cannot have the same vision as in the past. This cannot be developer-run, instead designer-run. Community must be stakeholders. Please ensure that they are required to have community representation, subject to open meeting laws, and subject to public information acts. For the historic areas, the historic communities in Elkridge and Savage birthed this county. Instead of just encouraging historic communities to acquire a historic designation, change the language to plan to assist these communities to obtain a historic designation. Historic area integrity and design should not be weakened in the language. As a Main Street resident, I've been so disappointed in efforts to support opportunities for historic preservation. Elkridge Main Street is our history. I do agree with the Route 1-15 that agree that a faster project delivery plan is essential. I do recommend creating a fiscal plan with the county and state to prioritize projects and provide transparency to the community. Route 1 is not opposed to housing, but we need life outside of our housing. We need to be able to mobilize and enjoy our community as those in other parts of the county speak so highly of. I am begging for District 2, 3, 4, and 5 to commit to implementable action for Route 1 for the first time. Thank you.
All right. Ms. Wisely, would you be able to send along your testimony?
Yes.
Thank you so much.
And have you seen Councilmember Walsh's? Okay, good. Excellent. Good.
All right, next we have Bernie Flowers.
Hi, good evening, Mr. Flowers. You've now been elevated. Feel free to unmute yourself when you're ready. Hi, good evening, Mr. Flowers. Are you able to unmute yourself and provide your testimony this evening?
All right, well, Mr. Flowers, if you can hear us, please email Mr. Anderson again. He did get your previous one, but we just need a little bit more connection to make sure that we can hear you. Next, we have Kevin Burke.
Okay.
Oh, wait, Mr. Flowers?
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Hello.
Hello.
Outstanding.
Yes, we can
How
hear
are
you.
you?
And we are looking forward to receiving your testimony.
Outstanding. I am in a car right now in Montgomery County, but I've been listening to you guys, and I thank you for taking my my call. And hello to the county council and anyone who's listening. Are you ready?
We are.
Well, my name is Bernie Flowers, and I'm a resident of Elkridge. I come to you with about 35 years of experience in planning and logistics, and I have a career as an Air Force officer and a senior government official. I'm retired now, and I'm concerned with my community. And like many here, I'm concerned with the general plan. First off, we're talking about accessory dwelling units and how they were just sidestepping the adequate public facilities ordinance, the APFO. That's a problem for me. Right now, ADUs are not even in the APFO's scope, which means they could lead to some reckless growth in our infrastructure, and we can't handle that right now. It's like trying to fit a square peg into a round hole. So let's talk about population density. ADUs are bound to squeeze more folks into residential areas that are going to put a ton of pressure on our already struggling infrastructure and public services and resources. Our zoning plans are there for a reason, and messing with them is just like asking for trouble. And don't get me started on traffic. ADUs mean that more cars in neighborhoods the neighborhoods are just simply not built for that kind of traffic. And our zoning rules, the managed traffic flow, might as well be thrown out the window. Plus, ADUs will jack up the demand for utilities on water, sewage, and electricity. Some areas have old school infrastructure that can't handle the extra load, and that is a recipe for disaster. There's also the affordability issue. If we don't regulate ADUs properly, they could drive up property values and kick lower income folks out of their homes. And that is what zoning plans are supposed to guard against. Stormwater drainage is another headache. ADUs can mess up our stormwater plans big time with more impervious surfaces and potential rule breaking and drainage system strength and soil issues and retrofitting headaches. It could be a real mess. And finally, our schools are going to take a beating. ADUs mean more kids and more portable classrooms, and we're already dealing with about 270 of these, if I'm not mistaken, and more funding needs and delays in repairing schools that could they could use some TLC, like Dunlogan Middle School and over in Columbia. And they've been there for a long time. So in a nutshell, the way we're handling ADUs and brushing off the adequate public facilities ordinance is a huge mistake. And with all my years of experience, I'm telling you, we need to rethink these zoning plans. We've got to look at the big picture and think about the long-term consequences and put our community first. Let's prioritize smart growth and the happiness of our people. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Flowers. Next, we have
Right.
Kevin Burke, followed by Chris Oliva, followed by Diana Lyles.
Hey, good evening. Can everyone hear me?
Yes.
Kevin Burke from
Wait,
Savage.
But they cannot hear you on the interwebs.
Roger.
Until you're at the microphone. But I always, as always, appreciate your oratory skill.
Thank you. My name's Kevin Burke. I'm from Savage, Maryland. I'm a board member of the Savage Community Association. In regards to them, I wanted to remind members present that the Savage Community Association has adopted or endorsed community testimony available at hocobydesign.streamlit.app, which has a whole host of recommendations, which I cannot hope to summarize in 3 minutes. Personally, my priorities, recommendations for the general plan, I want to see plans for building additional school capacity for any new residential growth. I understand we have an affordable housing crisis, but affordable also includes access to the same amenities. That includes public safety considerations, access to public transportation, if not regular transportation. The general plan should include for smart growth, that the infrastructure should grow right at the same rate or be ahead of new residential development. I don't consider trailer classrooms or converted commercial space to offer equitable access to education resources. So I would hope to avoid further portable classrooms or conversion of commercial space. We don't want our schools to be competing with Spirit Halloween for derelict commercial real estate. So, yeah, and I recommend that HOCO by Design provide a detailed plan on how to fund a solution to our overcrowded schools and for continued development and growth of our infrastructure to support both affordable housing and smart new development. I and many of my neighbors are concerned that ADUs by right could be abused by out-of-town landlords or create strife within communities due to increased demand on limited community resources. So again, I'm against ADUs by right. I think in certain instances with due process and review, they could be a good solution for many people. This is also, I also feel that our affordable housing crisis, many people here have proposed a minimum of 25% of new units be affordable. Is that conservative? Couldn't we do more, knowing that so many people have problems accessing affordable housing? I also would like to suggest that for the general plan, HOCO by Design, consider rent stabilization or rent control. Affordable housing isn't simply going to be solved by supply. It should also prohibit abusive landlord practices of year-over-year increasing rent well in excess of what inflation or growth in actual earned wages are.
Thank you, Mr. Burke. If you want to send some written comment as well as the link that you had mentioned, that would be greatly helpful.
Thank you. I appreciate your time.
Thank you so much. Next, we have Chris Oliva, followed by Diana Lyles, followed by Robert Smith.
Good evening. Chris Oliva, Columbia, Maryland. I'm here tonight to offer a little diversion from a lot of the testimony we've heard tonight. This is my third general plan that I've worked on since I've been in Howard County. And so I have some, I've seen this process several times. I think that we need to see if we can get this process condensed. This took and started in 2019, and I've heard a lot of urgent needs from many of my neighbors tonight. And by making this over this extended period, I think that it's not really serving the public interest. The general plans I was involved in, which were 2000, 2012, and of course this is my third one, like I said, I think they were done in a little bit more than a year, from start to finish. And I think it really is, I think we have this problem in general. When you had the two cases, the Erickson case and the Hickory Ridge case, it dragged on for your entire first term. And I'm just not sure what we can do. I don't have a great solution for you to offer. But I think that we do need to look at this and see if we can expedite things so we can address these pressing needs that we've heard tonight from all of our neighbors and friends. So that's all I have to say, and thank you so much.
Thank you, Mr. Oliva. Next, we have Diana Lyles. Followed by Robert Smith. Mr. Smith, I believe you're up. Who will be followed by NJ from 21045, as well as Diara Graves, and then Beth Velasquez Snedon. Oh,
Is this
I
on?
heard I got it wrong.
So my name is Bob Smith. I live in Allview, a little island surrounded by Columbia. And I'm here, I testified back in June, but there are a couple points I'd like to reiterate and a couple to change. First, what do we call it? Chapter 2 of the plan says that there are, I believe it was 562 acres of undeveloped, non-residential, non-retail land available to be developed and create jobs. I don't know where that land is. I've been an industrial broker in the county for 44 years, and I can't find it. So I would really appreciate the opportunity for the planning department to produce something that shows where that ground is and why it's not wetlands or otherwise undevelopable, even though it looks like it might be developable. Secondarily, that same consultant says that that vacant ground is going to produce 59,000 new jobs over the next 20 years or so. I don't know how they get there. I've got a master's degree in planning and most of the way toward a PhD, and I don't know how you generate that many jobs. I would love to see the backup for that, and I think that because a lot of the projections that are included in the general plan book that I read utilize those two numbers as benchmarks to talk about new housing units and things like that. I know everybody and his brother wants to move to Howard County, but still, those two numbers are flawed, and somebody ought to look really hard at them, tear them apart, and see what the real impacts are going to be. My second real point is I was the head of the Route 1 Revitalization Committee for, as Mr. Oliva said, two general plans ago. This general plan follows the same flaw. Our recommendations were rejected by the council back then. We called for the Route 1 corridor to be broken into small pieces and for detailed plans to be done for each of about 8 segments, whatever you want to call them, and that work be done in conjunction, government and private owners together. So you came up with a workable plan, and then you had a target. And if you have a target, you know where you're going, and you can look at incentives, whether they be tax or loans or whatever. Right now, you can't tell where you're going because you don't have a target, a small area target that you can agree with and that the local residential population can agree with. That's particularly true down in Laurel, South Laurel, where I think you're beginning to focus. And that's...
Mr. Smith, don't go. The 524 acres, could you repeat that again?
It's in chapter, sorry.
It's in the, is it in the RCLCO report, the market study report, where the 59,000 is as well?
It's in chapter 2, whatever it calls itself.
Okay.
It's
Chapter 2.
There's a paragraph in chapter 2 that specifically it says 526, 562, sorry, I'm tired, acres of
undeveloped commercial land.
Undeveloped industrial / commercial but non-residential land. And the 59,000 job number shows up in that same paragraph.
I'm very familiar with that number, yes.
And I don't believe the 59,000
Nor
jobs.
do I.
And quite frankly, if it was true, then all the school projection numbers are way out of whack. Because if you bring 59,000 jobs in, even if half of them are brought in from out of the county, that's 30,000 new county resident job people, which means even if it was husband and wife in each family, that's still a whole heck of a lot of kids to put in school somewhere. So there's a bunch of numbers built on those numbers. And
Yes,
I think
they
the
are.
numbers are, and I think you all need to go to the planning department and say, prove it.
We've asked that question. Certainly I have.
That's all I got.
Thank you.
Thanks.
We had a person who signed up with first initial N, last initial J. Oh, great.
Hi, good evening, NJ. We are now ready for your testimony. Feel free to unmute yourself when you're ready.
Yeah, thank you and good evening. Intentionally, I have hidden my real name because for my safety, I moved from Montgomery County to Howard County 3 decades ago when my kids were starting the kindergarten. I just moved Howard County because of the education We did not have a Google, but I went to library and did the research. I'm happy with Howard County. I grew from low income to the middle income to the wealthy family status. Due to the fraudulent divorce case, I lost everything. I'm homeless since year 2012. I've been hiding in Howard County streets because though I'm disabled, I'm aging now to the senior category. Recently, I think one gentleman mentioned about 16,000 applications in the housing program. I got rejected because I don't have SSDI, but I'm disabled. It doesn't make sense to me. When I'm reading all this, hearing this, first of all, was not given enough time for the public to appear. I couldn't come in person because of the transportation problem. Again, Howard County is the worst in the ADA transportation. If I would have come there, I would have stayed at the steps until next morning, and police would have arrested. I'm not arrested at all. I live very safely, but there is no program for Howard County resident who has lived dignified. I was a PTA president in many schools. I was involved a lot in my kids' growth during the school. I appreciate Howard County education. So the board members, whoever are in the planning and the zoning, I would appreciate if you live my life in Howard County. Even for 3 months, you will definitely see a difference in affordable, accessible housing program, what we need to provide to Howard County. It is really shame. I may be looking at the negative, but I'm facing the consequences of not done the good planning. I agree with Elk Ridge Corridor Route 1.
30 seconds.
It has been going under many development and still improvement is not done. I would appreciate if I like to meet in person and were present and can share more ideas what can be done for the Howard County residents who are looking to move into the better home housing program but cannot afford it. Second thing, there is a percentile differences between Montgomery County, Howard County, PG County for charging the affordable rent. Why Howard County is charging so much rent to
That's your
disabled
time.
homeless people? I'm sorry, but I want to still go on, but that's okay. Thank you.
Thank you. And I see that you have provided your email, and I'm Christiana, and I will be reaching out to you. So thank you for your testimony tonight.
Thank you.
Next, we have Diara Graves, followed by Beth Velasquez Snedden, followed by Drew Roth.
All right, am I on? Can everyone hear me? Great. All right, hi, my name is Diara Graves. I'm a Columbia, Maryland native and product of the Howard County school system. In 2017, I graduated from high school and left Columbia to attend college in DC at Georgetown University. I graduated in the midst of COVID in the spring of 2021 and came home to intern full-time with a continuing care retirement provider located in Montgomery County. Following that internship, I was promoted to administrator in training and on track to receive my nursing home administrator license in the state of Maryland. The prospect of making great income and fulfilling a long-term passion of servicing older adults made me feel on top of the world. What's more is that this career path brought me closer to fulfilling a lifetime goal of mine, which is being a homeowner. I still live at home with my parents with hope of saving enough for a down payment on a property here in the very county that raised and nurtured me. I also hoped to stay engaged doing community work with the Howard County NAACP, the Harriet Tubman Foundation, the Howard County General Hospital's Young Professional Committee, the Community Ecology Institute's Freetown Farm, and now Leadership Howard County Leadership Premier's Class of 2024. I soon learned that my dream would not be attainable anytime soon. With a shortage of current home inventory and pricey properties, what I thought was an above average postgraduate salary was not enough to buy my first property on a single income salary. Not to add, the recent Supreme Court decision means I will be paying back my student loans. This council is not ignorant to the challenges of renters and has learned and heard many testimonies on their plights. But what I've taken from many of these testimonies, especially about renters, is the opportunity cost associated with being a renter. I realize that I'm very fortunate to have a family that will continue to house me. However, I'm here to testify in support of a general plan that creates pathways for early career and postgraduate professionals such as myself, who one day hope to raise families and make contributions to a county that has meant so much to her since the earliest stages of her life. I believe that Howard County has always been known for its investment in its youth through great public education, robust parks and recreation, and community supports. In fact, this was one of the very reasons that my family moved here to begin with. To keep this reputation, I encourage the County Council to adopt a plan that accommodates its youth once we're ready to take the next steps into early adulthood. This includes increasing the number of available units and housing inventory in the county based on projected job growth for the next 10 to 15 years. Consider opportunities to develop land for affordable housing and starter homes in the Gateway Overlook area. And lastly, adopting HOCO by design with minimal modification, but namely the adoption of more affordable housing options. If the council takes one thing from my testimony today, let it be the love and commitment I have for my county. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Graves. And thank you for the wonderful Harriet Tubman Day celebration as well. Next, we have Beth Velasquez. And I hope that you will school me on how to appropriately pronounce your name.
Velasquez Snedden.
Thank you.
Good evening to the council members and everyone in attendance. My name is Beth Velasquez Snedden. I am a resident of Sykesville in Howard County. I am also a member of Howard County Rent Stabilization Coalition. And today I will be speaking on behalf of our Revolution Howard County, which is an organization that focuses on empowering our community to make our political and economic systems once again responsive to the needs of our working families. We all know that presently more people than not struggle with the high cost of living. As an immigrant, a wife, and the mother of 4 wonderful children, I represent just one of the many working families and tenants in Howard County. As working families, we have many needs that need to be addressed in order to improve our quality of life. But today, I'd like to emphasize the need of more than just affordable housing for all. Along with affordable housing, we urgently need and deserve a strong rent stabilization bill that meets the needs of all working families and renters. The lack of rent stabilization affects everyone, but when you have children that have special needs, the negative effects are even more devastating to the family and our community. The lack of rent stabilization works against us in many different ways, from unreasonable uncapped rent increases, vacancy control issues, to the many exemptions that only protect the interests of a select few, completely disregarding the needs of the majority of us, hard-working families of Howard County. Without a strong rent stabilization, it doesn't matter if you pay your rent on time, follow the rules, or if you're a model tenant. Presently, without a rent stabilization bill, renters have no protection, no guarantees that we won't lose the place we call home. That is why we need a strong rent stabilization plan in Howard County. And the reason I know this is because since 2017, due to the lack of any rental stabilization, I've been forced to move 4 times in the past 6 years. And, completely unrooting my kids from their neighborhood friends, from their school friends, from like the place they felt familiar with. And every single time it's turned our life upside down, on top of the added expenses that come along with moving. Like I said, having to set up new IEPs and, the loss of the familiar environment, it creates a feeling of instability in our children, and they should not have to deal with this. Especially because we all know that we can do something about it. We want, and we deserve a strong rent stabilization bill in Howard County. A strong bill must include all of the following features in order to work for all tenants. 1, 3% annual rent increase cap. 2, no exceptions for any landlord, tenant, or lease types. All tenants deserve protections. No exceptions for newly constructed units. That was number 3. Number 4, vacancy control to keep rent stabilized from one tenant to the next. Caps on administrative and miscellaneous fees. And number 6, enforcement by a county agent. And this is very important to me because I've gone through these with my family way too many times to count. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Drew Roth, followed by Kiana Butts, followed by Tracy Williams.
Good evening. My name's Drew Roth. I live in Elk Ridge. I submitted extensive testimony on Howard County by Design back in July, which called out needed changes to the plan. I've summarized those changes in my written testimony, which I emailed to the council this afternoon. I'm delighted that Liz Walsh has already introduced an amendment to address one of the big ones, the need to assemble a parcel of land in Elk Ridge that can be used for public amenities, including a badly needed high school. HOCO by Design is shockingly oblivious to the health and quality of life impact of BWI air traffic on Howard County. Endless air traffic overhead injures those who live below. The FAA's next-gen flight path changes in 2015 moved air traffic from commercial and industrial areas such as Gateway to residential areas in Hanover, Elk Ridge, and Columbia. Our state delegation sponsored a health study which determined that the present value of the health impacts of those next-gen changes over 30 years is $800 million. Our communities came together to get the flight paths reverted back away from our homes. But HOCO by Design should not be proposing new residential communities under the BWI flight paths that we've reverted back into industrial areas. But it does at the Gateway Industrial Park and in the Route 1 corridor, and the future residents of those homes will suffer. These areas should be restricted to commercial and industrial uses and not residential. Let's talk about transparency. There should be public hearings for all amendments to HOCO by Design. Many expect that there will be last-minute amendments intended to remove restrictions on development and to gut the Apfo law. It is essential that there be transparency and public comment end-to-end in the approval process for HOCO by Design. Under no circumstance should an amendment be considered for HOCO by Design without a public hearing on that amendment. There is much happy talk in HOCO by Design that will lead the inattentive members of the public to believe that HOCO by Design serves their interests and protects their communities. There will likely be attempts to sneak in amendments that create an even bigger gap between this perception and the reality of HOCO by Design's irresponsible and excessive residential growth without planning for needed schools and other infrastructure. It is so disappointing to hear speaker after speaker here tonight talking about how many thousands and thousands more housing units are needed while saying not one word about the schools to go along with those houses. Not to mention the schools still missing for the thousands of new housing units that have already been built. Is it equitable for some kids to have classes in trailers? Is it equitable for some communities to have no schools at all? Why does does building more housing increase or decrease that inequity? Why does HOCO by Design say so little about schools? If HOCO by Design can say how many houses will be built and where, it should say how many schools will be built and where. Thank you.
All right. Next we have Kiana Butts, followed by Tracy Williams.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. How are you? So I came tonight to speak as an individual, but I guess since we spoke a lot about the Black and the brown people, I'm going to say that we are tired of being disenfranchised in this county. I spoke at the July hearing on July 19th, and I made a statement which I will not repeat what I said, but if anyone wants to look it up, I'm sure that they can find it online. I spoke to the fact that, I went to high school here, I grew up here, I want to raise my children here. I cannot afford to live here. I tried to appeal to my county council person regarding my issues. My issues were ignored. So my concern here is that we're saying that we're going to offer affordable housing, but who is the affordable housing for? Because basically what it is we have programs in place that support the financial gain of these developers. They support the financial gain of these landlords. I'm currently on a vehicle that is falling apart. My previous landlord is riding around in a Lexus and a Porsche truck off of the proceeds of my then rent payments. Ms. Young, when I made my statement the last time, you seem to be concerned, and I understand that you're not my council person, but I also understand that you grew up here, you went to Wild Lake, you've been here for over three decades, and you would like to continue to live here. My children and I were ejected from our home, and there were a number of things that were wrong, anywhere from my landlord being able to raise the rent that went against the law, that went against the time frame, anywhere from it being a situation where there was a bill in place, the bill was not honored. Opal Jones is my council person. I hear Mr. Jones is running for county executive. You will not get my vote. So with that being said, affordable housing is nice, but this is not for the people. Rent stabilization would be nice. That would be a nice turn to do so, because we are tired of relocating. It costs money to be homeless. It costs money to have to move, and it's money that we don't have. These rental increases, if you're supposed to make 3 times the rent, how are we going to be able to support a $500, $700, $900 increase, and these jobs are not paying it? So with that, our lives are in the hands of you people. And I don't say that disrespectfully, but I say that when you go home tonight, enjoy, because me and my children don't have a home. Thank you. Good night.
Thank you, Ms. Butts.
Ms. Butts?
Miss Butts, please. Miss Butts.
Dr. Jones.
So, Ms. Butts, it sounds
Madam
like
Chair.
Dr. Jones.
Madam Chair.
If Dr. Jones would like to speak to me, you
Madam
have my
Chair.
contact information.
No, this is a public Madam Chair, can I speak, please?
Yes. So, Dr. Jones and then Ms. Young.
Yes. Good evening, Ms. Butts. Myself and my office have been in touch with you on several occasions.
You
I
have
do
not?
understand what you, ma'am.
You can contact
Myself
you have
and
my
ma'am,
Dr. Jones, you have my personal information.
Ma'am.
You can contact me
Ma'am.
via email or via phone.
All right.
We don't have to do this publicly.
So,
Ma'am,
let him finish his
myself and my
sentence,
office
and
have
then
been in touch with you on several occasions. We will continue to reach out to you and other partners as we have done in the past. We look forward to speaking to you soon. Thank you.
Okay, I'll look forward to hearing from you, but I would like change, and I would like for somebody to address my issues appropriately instead of pointing the finger at me and instead of sweeping me under the rug, because my children and I are suffering in Howard County, and this is the second wealthiest county in America. It's shameful.
and Ms. Butts, I think Ms. Young.
Right, I just wanted, I think the last time you came here, you were on the verge of.
Correct.
Yes, I remember, yeah, you were
That
you
is
were that
correct.
close to losing your rental unit.
Correct.
And it sounds like you now have lost it.
That is correct.
Yeah.
And none of my issues were addressed. If anything, the finger was shaken at me. And I can read and write. I know what the law says, and I know that it wasn't followed. And I hear what Opal Jones said, but I've never heard from him. And once I emailed my statement to his office, his assistant ghosted me and stopped answering my communication. I asked for my council members to address my issue, and it was not addressed. And so this is not about me, because I'll be okay. This is about the people that are less boisterous, the people that are going through these things and they're suffering. All those hotels up and down Route 1, they are filled with nothing but homeless people. Do you know how much it costs to eat during the day when you do not have a stove or a refrigerator to keep your food? It's expensive. And those people are ordering Uber Eats. Those people are just trying to survive. So my children and I will be just fine. But before you guys decide that you're going to put a law in place to be in bed with these developers and to get kickbacks and whatnot, think about the people, because in 10 years, when we revisit these laws and HOCO by design, the crime will go up, the homelessness will go up, and this will look like Baltimore City or New York City or any other city, and this is not what Jim Rouse had in mind. When I moved here, this was a nice, safe place. It is not, I repeat, it is not heading in that direction.
Thank you.
Thank
you for
you.
sharing your story. Next, we have Tracy Williams, followed by Keisha Graves, followed by Daniel Balkin.
Hi, good evening, Tracy. You may unmute yourself when you're ready.
Good evening, Madam Chairperson and esteemed council members. My name is Dr. Tracy Williams, and I am a resident of District 1. I am the president of the African American Community Roundtable of Howard County and a pupil personnel worker with the Howard County Public School System. I am here again to ask you to address the housing crisis that exists within our county. The African American Community Roundtable is a member of the Housing Affordability Coalition, and we ask you to vote to accept the amendments recommended by the coalition. We desperately need to add more affordable housing units to the Howard County by Design General Plan to meet the needs of senior citizens, differently abled residents, and the middle and low income residents. Since July 1st, I have been working with students, families, and staff members who are struggling to maintain their housing or who are already homeless and desperately trying to find some place to live in our great county. These are hard-working residents who deserve to live, play, and work in Howard County. It breaks my heart every time I hear another family facing eviction. These families are already paying over 50% of their salary toward rent and are still facing eviction because of unregulated rent increases. This issue goes much deeper than housing. It is an issue of inequality. Many of the residents impacted by the lack of affordable and accessible housing are people of color. Limiting affordable housing has the potential to increase social issues like homelessness, poor educational outcomes, and mental and physical health conditions. In contrast, research shows that the addition of affordable housing in communities gives everyone, and I emphasize everyone, the opportunity to have greater educational and health outcomes. Families with reasonable housing costs can reallocate funding toward nutritious food and health care. Families with affordable rent experience lower rates of stress and better health outcomes. Well-constructed and maintained affordable housing also reduces health problems often found in poorly maintained housing. Once again, I ask you to vote in support of the recommended amendments of the Housing Affordability Coalition. Let's live up to the title of being one of the best places to live in America because we value the lives and the needs of all of our residents. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much, Ms. Williams. Next, we have Keisha Graves, followed by Daniel Balkin, followed by Harry Hadgu. All right, next we have Daniel Balkin. Welcome.
Thank you very much. This is going to be probably the most narrow and seemingly trivial testimony of the night, but it's a little bit of a larger issue. having to do with asking for some transparency and accountability from some other parts of the county as they provide inputs to the plan. And I'm representing the Gaither Farm Homeowners Association, and basically want to go on record expressing our concerns and our current, not perpetual, opposition to the proposed extension of the water and sewer lines to extend back from the Howard County Public School System's Route 108 campus. The reason why we're currently opposed to this as a part of the general plan is that we've requested information from HCPSS multiple times regarding the project or projects that they're considering or envisioning, and which may have potential impact on the local area in many different areas, biodiversity, amongst many other things. And they've responded, but they basically respond with no response, no transparency. We have reason to believe that they're not giving us information that they have for what they have in mind. And again, we're just simply asking that they share their plans so that we can understand what it is they want to do before it gets put onto a 10-year plan. Since we have no idea what they have envisioned, we have no idea what negative impacts there could be to the community, and therefore no idea what mitigations might be requested or in consideration, and therefore we currently oppose this. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Narrow but important. Thank you. Next we have Hari Hadgu, followed by Emily Brandon. Will be followed by Julie Hotep.
Hari Hadgu. I'm the president of the Progressive Democrats of Howard County, and I'm testifying today to raise some concerns regarding the next general plan. First, let me begin by highlighting a concerning trend that has emerged in our county's development landscape. It appears that supply-side trickle-down economics is now being employed by developers to secure economic benefits through favorable zoning and land use decisions. DPZ has asserted that there is a substantial deficit of homes in Howard County. This claim is alarming, of course. However, I don't think trickle-down will address this deficit. If the average home, the median home in Howard County is about $550,000. For someone to be able to afford that at the current interest rate, they need to be making about $144,000. To address the needs of the people who are actually the target demographic, people making $50,000 to $75,000, or in that area, home prices need to be around $250,000. There's no way you can reduce home prices by 50% by adding 20 or 30,000 units in Howard County. There's no way you can address that. To address affordability, we need actual regulations. We need to require developers to provide affordable housing in the projects that they build. Howard Hughes was given an incredible amount of density bonus and zoning and land use entitlements, and it owes the county 1,000 affordable units that it has not delivered to date since when the bill was passed. The downtown Columbia plan was passed in 2016 or whenever that was. The trickle down, I think, will lead to predominantly a community of renters that are going to be dependent on billionaire hedge fund property owners, where the equity would accrue to them instead of actually creating an opportunity for people to own homes, starter homes, condos, whatever it may be, to own homes where the equity would accrue to them, to the homeowners. But the current trend is that the equity is going to accrue mostly to wealthy developers and property, these billionaire hedge funds gobbling up properties all over the country. We also need rent stabilization, robust rent stabilization that will tie rent increases to some sort of index, maybe the CPI. We're also concerned about the plan's call to dismantle Apfo, and perhaps allowing developers to to build in overcrowded communities. It's important to note that over the years, every new home has generated an average of 0.5 children on average. We can't go around this metric. Regardless of what home is built, when you divide the number of kids by the number of homes, it's 0.5. So the goal should be for every 2 homes, there should be 1 chair, one seat in a school, not in a trailer, not in any auxiliary facility, but in a actual classroom, a brick and mortar classroom. For every 2 homes, there should be 1 chair. The top 5 underperforming elementary schools in Howard County are all in Columbia and predominantly attended by children of color. The plan has the HOCO by Design has no plan on how to address this disparity. HOCO by Design has no plan on how to build a new high school in Elkridge. Schools are completely an afterthought. It will likely succeed in increasing affordability in Howard County, but it's not because of some intentional. It's not because of it's intentional. It's likely due to declining quality of living that will lead to reduced demand in housing. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Emily Brandon, followed by Julie Hotep, followed by Ellen Schneider.
Hello, is it on? Good. It's late and I'm going to throw numbers at you, but I promise they're numbers you haven't heard today. So I'm Emily Brandon. I am in District 4 as of about 2 months ago. Thank you for the opportunity to speak. At the last hearing, I gave my personal testimony about my issues with housing, but I really want to focus on who the 500 affordable housing units proposed or recommended by the Housing Affordability Coalition will impact. So we've heard across the entire evening about the impact of increasing affordable housing on our schools and communities, but I want to talk about what homelessness does to our children, because we haven't talked about that. The National Center on Family Homelessness reports that students with low income are twice as likely to repeat a grade, be expelled, get suspended, or drop out of high school. In Maryland, the dropout rate of students experiencing homelessness is approximately 25% compared to 8.4% of housed students. Students experiencing homelessness are less likely to have adequate access to mental and dental care, have high rates of asthma and related respiratory challenges, and it's not just our school children. Homeless college students report lower GPAs, and they're less likely to persist in their studies and drop out at higher rates than their peers. While talking about the health of our children, I also want to talk about the health of our adults. 40% of the healthcare services people experiencing homelessness need are not covered by insurance, including adult dental care and nursing services. People experiencing homelessness are 3 to 4 times more likely to die prematurely, 2 times as likely to have a heart attack or stroke, and are 3 times as likely to die of heart disease if they're between 25 and 44. We know for a fact that chronic experiences of trauma are hazardous to one's health. 93% of mothers without homes have a history of trauma, and 81% have experienced multiple traumas. Because I've heard about overcrowded hospitals, individuals experiencing homelessness also have higher readmission rates with hospitals. So while I'm testifying today as an individual, I am still an employee of Bridges to Housing Stability. So in FY23, we served 164 female-headed households and 222 children. If we follow the math from those studies, without housing, approximately 152 of those mothers will have a history of trauma, and 132 will have experienced multiple traumas. 55 of those children, which, mind you, fills up the first 5 rows over there, would not graduate high school, and 92 would have untreated dental concerns. I hear the concerns from my colleagues that they're struggling to locate housing for clients because the only available units cost upwards of $2,500 a month for a 2-bedroom basic apartment. I hear from parents at resource fairs that their adult children have had rent raised $1,000 with a 60-day date to get out. At the HCPSS resource fair held for staff, the item taken the most from our table was the application for our Bridges Alliance program that serves working families earning low income. We can do something about this. The 500 affordable units proposed by the Housing Affordability Coalition will provide homes for the babies, toddlers, students, young adults, parents, individuals with disabilities, and senior citizens that are all at risk for the concerns that I have mentioned today. Our case managers are good, but they're not magicians. Thank you for your time, and I urge you to make this change in the general plan.
Thank you, Ms. Brandon. All right, next we have Julie Hotep with us virtually, who will be followed. I'm going to run down the whole list, so stay tuned for your name. After Ms. Hotep, we have Alan Schneider, followed by Jake Burdett, followed by Joel Hurwitz, followed by Ty Keys, followed by Cindy Underwood.
Hi, good evening, Julie. You have been unmuted. Feel free to begin your testimony whenever you're ready.
Thank you. All too often, we hear that certain issues, like the current bus fiasco, are due to school system decisions and policies. But as we think about and discuss the general plan, we absolutely need to think about the county government's role in the current bus fiasco. For instance, the lack of adequate public facilities like crosswalks and sidewalks leads to many students needing a bus who could easily walk. In my own neighborhood, my son walks, crossing at an unmarked crosswalk. I have been asking for a crosswalk since at least 2018, when I was told by the county that, and I quote, pavement markings provide a false sense of safety for pedestrians at uncontrolled intersections. All I want is paint on the ground so cars might notice him crossing, sometimes in the dark, to get to school. This is after the county explained that we didn't need one because our kids don't walk to elementary school, because apparently middle and high school students don't matter. Recently, a crosswalk was added at the next street over, which is hilarious because they don't have a sidewalk. We have a sidewalk, they have a crosswalk. I refer to it as a crosswalk to nowhere. This is repeated over and over in the county. Half-finished sidewalks, missing crosswalks, and the need for more school buses. One of many results of not having adequate public facilities. The bus problems are not new. It's not just this year. We have had large bus problems since the 2019 redistricting, when central office staff made it abundantly clear they did not have the buses. My son was held at middle school for over an hour every day for a double bus run. That bus route has had issues continuously since then. And why did we need so much redistricting? Due to the development plans of the county, we continue to concentrate poverty in certain neighborhoods, concentrating poverty in schools. There are only two solutions. One is to send walkers to other schools using buses. The other is to develop smarter. Please develop smarter. It also cannot go without notice that the schools in areas where there is concentration of poverty are some of our oldest and in the most need of renovation, but often nowhere close to being renovated. In the case of Bryant Woods, it is one of the oldest and one of the smallest.
30
Why
seconds.
is the smallest and oldest elementary school in Columbia in the middle of some of the densest housing in the county? And then, of course, there's the condition of our schools and the number of portables. They need to be addressed. I agree we need affordable housing. We need policies to ensure housing stays affordable, as we heard about in testimony earlier today and earlier this year. We also need to ensure we have adequate public facilities to support our current and future residents. Please ensure schools and infrastructure support families' current needs and grow at the same pace future housing grows. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next, we have Alan Schneider. And if folks want to start coming on deck, after Mr. Schneider, we have Mr. Burdett, and for those following online, It will be Joel Hurwitz, Ty Keys, and Cindy Underwood.
Good evening. I'm Alan Schneider, Clarksville, Maryland. I'm just have a few words to say. I don't want to take up your time. I really want to say that you can do better. There are certain things that have been announced here. Policies are good, but there has to be some way of actually achieving the policies. We know that the general plans in the past have not achieved their goals. Policies are good, but the policies need standards, they need criteria, and they need disapproval if the plans going forward do not achieve those objectives. So you have to look at how can those policies be achieved. There's a group of engineers that focus on that. They have a plan. They can put into place how to achieve those objectives, those goals, those standards. Now the standards, are about affordable housing. Affordable housing has many, many different aspects to it, and not all of them have been addressed here. One of the ways that you can achieve lower costs is by requiring solar on any new development. That will eliminate the 15% annual increase in electricity. That really does a lot to achieve the ability of low-income people to pay for mortgages. There are other incentives that enable home ownership, which builds equity to enable people to send their kids to school. Funding is also a goal that is not included in the general plan. There's got to be some way of including that so you actually achieve those goals, and 10 years from now we don't have another problem where we haven't achieved the goals that we set forth this time. So there are what you would call consultants, engineers, who can help you to achieve the goals that you put into place. So I would encourage that. And I would also mention that higher taxes can be limited by actually having environmental compliance. I would ask you that you give good consideration to achieving environmental compliance. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Schneider. Next, we have Mr. Burdette.
Good evening, members of the Howard County Council. My name is Jake Burdette. I'm the co-chair of Our Revolution Howard County, as well as a member of the recently launched Howard County Rent Stabilization Coalition. The general plan is, in its current state, is planning to add thousands of rental units to the county over the next few decades. So with that reality in mind, it is stunning to me that there is currently no mention of any tenant protections such as rent stabilization in the general plan. Many who designed the general plan would justify the planned rapid increase of rental units in the county by saying that building units for more tenants is an automatically benevolent and pro-tenant move that will somehow benefit future or current tenants. But I think the fact that many more rental units are being projected for without any additional tenant protections should tell us everything that we need to know about what the county's true intentions for tenants are. The county may pay lip service to claiming to care about tenants, but clearly the county really just views them as merely an instrument to be exploited for developer and landlord profit. If this was not the case, the county in general plan would be calling for strong tenant protections like rent stabilization to make sure that any new and existing tenants can actually afford to stay here once they move in. But unfortunately, many of the tenant stories tonight have made clear Howard County is not even protecting their current tenants, so why would we want to just build more rental units to allow even more vulnerable tenants to be exploited in this manner? I personally believe that tenants deserve stability in Howard County just like everybody else. The only way to ensure that tenants have this stability is through a strong rent stabilization bill. Neighboring Prince George's and Montgomery counties just recently passed rent stabilization bills themselves, and Howard County should be next. And while it's great to see our neighbors lead the way on this issue, unfortunately, the Prince George's program will only last for 1 year, and the Montgomery County bill is riddled with exemptions that greatly water down the bill, such as not having the rent stabilization applied to new units until 23 years after they have been built. But in the richest county, in the richest state, in the richest country to ever exist, we cannot afford a similarly watered-down rent stabilization bill here in Howard County, and we instead need a strong rent stabilization bill with the following 6 features that the Howard County Rent Stabilization Coalition is calling for. 1, 3% annual rent increase cap. 2, no exemptions for any landlord, tenants, or lease types. All tenants deserve protections. 3, no exemptions for newly constructed units. 4, vacancy control to keep rent stabilized from one tenant to the next. 5, caps on administrative and miscellaneous fees. And 6, enforcement by a county agency. To be clear, any rent stabilization bill that does not closely resemble those features and does not have significant tenant input is not serious about helping tenants. The Howard County Rent Stabilization Coalition looks forward to working with council members to craft a strong bill as described, and we'd love to see an amendment that also matches those rent stabilization features because the rent is too damn high. Thank you all.
Thank you. Next, we have Joel Hurwitz.
Hi, good evening, Mr. Hurwitz. You've been elevated. Feel free to unmute yourself when you're ready.
Evening, council members. Joel Hurwitz from Columbia. I'd like to give support to what Stu Cohn said, and while I don't always agree with Drew Roth, I support his comments this evening. Part of the problem with the hospital I have is what it's doing to the fire department with the ambulances going out of the county, with Stu Cohn's comment. I'd like to see captions on all the identifiable development and roadway photos be referenced, compared in the future in what will become a historic document. I'd like to see steps to preserve the 920 so acres of the University of Maryland experimental farm so that there's no chance that it might possibly become. As the chair knows, like the county, to update the electric vehicle charging law to conform to the state law. Policy statement 8 in motion chapter says to actively plan for and evaluate the impact of technology and climate change in the transportation system and encourage the installation of electric vehicle charging stations in private and public spaces. Yet Howard County continues to make it unlawful technically to charge an electric truck or a low-speed electric vehicle. So what is this policy statement going to mean if you can't follow it? At your work session last week, Jessica Bella said that transportation is everything. It's where you need to go. Technology doesn't slow down. While there was discussion of Route 1 and autonomous vehicles, there's no discussion of urban air mobility, and electric vehicle takeoff and landing, or eVTOLs or air taxis, particularly as it pertains to the Columbia Transit Center and Route 1. My comments a few months ago were one of the few that were on this topic were adopted by the Baltimore Regional Transportation Board in their Resilience 2050 plan. They added urban air mobility and electric vehicle takeoff taxis to their plan. eVTOLs plan to be used at the Paris Olympics next year with a vertiport in Columbia's sister city of Cergy-Pontois. The Maryland Technology Development Corporation in Columbia has invested in eVTOL developer Apfo. And last month, there was a convention hosted by the FAA in Baltimore on advanced air mobility. The FAA has written a planning document, and one of the things is to put urban infrastructure into larger transportation utility planning efforts to ensure seamless coverage and capacity.
30 seconds.
And the city of Los Angeles has written in 2020 about having connections with ground transportation, medical centers and fulfillment centers and trains, and vertiports should be considered where land uses may support urban air mobility bands, such as major retail centers, stadiums and arenas, major tourist attractions, higher education campuses, office, and major transportation facilities. This roughly approximates downtown Columbia where the transit center is, and that's why it should be included in the plan.
Thank you, Mr. Hurwitz. Next, we have Ty Keys. Ms. Graves? All right, hold on. We're going to elevate you, and then I think we'll be able to hear your testimony.
Yes.
All right, Ms. Graves, we can now hear you.
Hello, everyone. Sorry for being late. I'll try to make it fast. Wow.
Well, you get 3 minutes, so you can take it all.
Okay, so I'm here basically, my situation in Howard County. It's like a lot of other people say, you know, my children were born and raised here, can't afford to live here anymore. Just unfortunate for me. A lot of situations I'm dealing with right now, not of Howard County. I'm not very happy of what's going on with our Howard County Housing Commission program, our Housing Choice Voucher program. It's not even a program per se, it's how the program is being run. You know, you have policy that's in place, policy is not being upheld. My rent increases astronomical because I reported my property to license and permits for not maintaining my property. That is their lease. They're violating the lease. Howard County Housing Commission is violating the law by allowing these rent increases. Law 151 on the book says that in order for a rent increase to be approved, or in order for me to get a rent increase, it has to be served certified mail. I have lived in Howard County for 20-something years. I lived in one house for 14 years. I was never served certified mail a rent increase, yet Howard County Housing Commission keeps increasing my rent. So recently, well, like I said, last year, my rent was increased 7 times more than my neighbors. That is against the law in itself, because if my unit is the same size, the rent cannot be increased that astronomical. I just received another rent increase for the new year from $26.95 to $28.30. It somehow was denied, I guess, because I let Mr. Peter Engel and his staff know that you keep approving these rent increases that I never brought to your attention, and that is illegal. That is illegal. So first we have to get the practices of the law, and these policies in these agencies the policies in these agencies do not supersede Maryland law, and they are violating the law, and nobody in Howard County will hear it. Nobody will do anything about it. Human Rights is not doing anything about it. I've talked to the OAG. Nobody's doing anything about it. And it's unfortunate because a lot of us probably wouldn't even be suffering these rent increases if people were forced to abide by the law. I have to abide by the law on the Housing Choice Voucher program. The landlord should be abiding by the law, as should Howard County Housing Commission. That is all I have.
Thank you very much, Ms. Graves. And you can reach the full council, by the way, at councilmail@howardcountymd.gov if you'd like to share more with us.
Yes, I will. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, well, this concludes our third general plan public hearing. Please continue to monitor the council's website for more information about the general plan process. We are now adjourned, and thank you all for your dedication.
This meeting is no longer being recorded.